Hmm? Ah! Oh.
I mean, this ring is your redemption. It's what you've been waiting for.
No, it just looks like it.
Angel, man, think what you're saying.
I have. I've thought of it from every angle. What I figure is I did a lot of damage in my day. More than you can imagine.
So what, you don't get the ring because your period of self-flagellation isn't over yet? I mean, think of all the daytime people you could help between 9 and 5.
They have help. The whole world is designed for them. So much that they have no idea what goes on around them after dark. They don't see the weak ones lost in the night, or the things that prey on them. And if I joined them, maybe I'd stop seeing too.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Sam. For this episode, we're going to be discussing Angel, Season 1, Episode 3, In the Dark, written by Douglas Petrie, David Greenwald, and JW, and directed by Bruce Seth Green. And Season 1, Episode 4, I Fall to Pieces, written by David Greenwald, Janine Renshaw, and JW, and directed by Vern Gillum.
These episodes originally aired on October 19th and 26th of 1999 to audiences of 3.7 million and 3.6 million households, respectively. Some of the alternative titles in other languages for Episode 3 were, in the French, The Gem of Amara, and in German and Italian, The Ring of Amara. Those were kind of disappointing, but the titles for Episode 4 were a little more fun. In Czech, it was called Piece by Piece. In Finnish, Puzzle.
Oh.
In French, The Strange Dr. Meltzer. In German, slightly different, The Stitches of Dr. Meltzer. Italian, The Mediumistic Surgeon. Brazilian Portuguese, I Fall Apart Completely. And in Russian, I'm Falling Apart.
Which one of those are your favorite?
The first person ones crack me up because the person who's falling apart is the doctor. Is this supposed to be from his point of view? Like, do the Russians and the Brazilians think that he's the main character? I don't know.
I know. The first person gets me.
Oh my God. It's so ridiculous.
I fall apart completely. That feels familiar for me for this week. But that just really tickled me.
That is a very common feeling that I have had. You may notice we don't have Kara with us this week because she has a big, huge case that she's working on. And so we told her to go ahead and take some time and we would do this one without her. But she'll be back next time and we'll miss her, but we will get through.
She's here in spirit.
Exactly.
Like human rights.
Let's see what was happening in 1999.
The number one song in the US was Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas. And the number one song in the UK was Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera. US box office, Fight Club remains number one. Double Jeopardy still in there at number 2, and The Story of Us is hanging strong in number 3.
I did notice on the Billboard charts that Mambo number 5 is climbing the charts.
Oh, wow.
That
Talk
song
about flashback.
Lived in my head for months after it came out.
Yes.
Just months and months.
Whew. Mambo number 5. Da-da-da-da.
So Kara usually puts together the news and stuff, and I think I was going to different websites than she was, and I got these hilarious New York Post little snippets.
I
So
love
on that night, on October 19th, the Mets they had an amazing 15-inning game Sunday night, scored one of the highest ratings of the year for WNBC Channel 4 in New York. By the end of the Mets-Braves game, about 2.6 million homes were tuned in to see Robin Ventura's grand slam turned single that won the game. The ratings indicated an incredible 55% of everyone watching TV in New York Sunday night was tuned in to the Met game's dramatic ending.
I didn't understand most of the words you used in that, but I support it.
I do like that it was 2.6 million homes, and Angel got 3.6. So
yeah, we did. Like we're a part of the crew.
And this just seemed weirdly relevant and prophetic. That on that day, the New York Post printed, "Donald Trump is back in familiar territory on TV." The man who only last month announced he was looking into landing a new job as president of the United States was enlisted by CompUSA to hawk their new website in a national television campaign. The site, called Cozone.com, was launched yesterday in a bid to help the struggling computer chain gain momentum in a market dominated by upstart computer e-tailers. CompUSA CEO James Halpin has been cutting jobs and closing stores as falling PC prices and internet competition led to a drop in profits for 5 quarters. To support the launch of the site, the company has embarked on a multi-million-dollar ad campaign, including TV, radio, and print. The Donald, people don't call him that anymore, thank God.
No.
The Donald appears in one ad wearing a suit, messily attempting to mold clay on a potter's wheel. He eventually gives up, bidding $600 for another student's spot. The spot ends with Trump hitting on a young woman washing her hands next to him.
Ooh.
So he's a fraud, he uses money instead of skill, and he is inappropriate with young women. Nothing's changed.
No, not at all. I mean, did the powers that be send this?
Yeah, exactly. They need to send Angel over to the White House to take care of Trump for us.
Yeah, they were like, here, we're gonna give you a flash warning, a vision that you need to handle. Oh, that was timely. And yes, fair. I will say it again. He is a consistent person.
That's true. He's been telling the world who he is for years. Yeah.
He is the same person he's always been, and like you said, telegraphed. On October 19th, there was a vote on campaign finances blocked again. For the 4th year, Senate GOP leaders prevented the action. Measure was sponsored by John McCain, Republican of Arizona, and Russell Feingold, a Democrat out of Wisconsin, would vote to ban unlimited and unregulated donations to political parties. Wow, that didn't age well.
No, it would have been really nice to have that.
Yeah, just a bit. And on October 27th, the agreement revises banking laws. Clinton and Republican leaders reach accord on overhauling financial systems. The pact repeals Depression-era laws that prevent banking, securities, and insurance industries from expanding into each other's fields.
Oh, and that didn't have any negative impacts like the savings and loan crisis or the tech bubble bursting or the fall of Lehman Brothers and AIG Insurance and all the stuff that happened in the early 2000s on Wall Street.
Yeah.
No problem. No, not a problem.
None of this aged well 25 years later. It's almost like history's been slowly repeating itself.
Yeah, just a little bit like that. It's a little disturbing that we have not come very far in 25 years.
No, and speaking of setting back the clock.
Yeah, let's talk about some stalkers and some abuse. We decided to cover these 2 episodes together because in episode 3, there's this small B story of this woman with an abusive boyfriend, and Angel is helping her. And it's sort of lightly dealt with, and I knew that it was going to, cause us to have a conversation about intimate partner violence and violence against women. And then episode 4 is like the souped up supernatural version where this woman is being stalked by someone, and it's more violence against women. It's more rape culture. And so I was like, let's just get it all in one episode and talk about it all. Also, I think episode 4 is kind of one of the weaker episodes of the season, so
it's boring.
it doesn't need its whole own podcast.
Yeah. It vacillates between extremely upsetting and extremely boring. At least for me.
Yeah. And it doesn't have any long-term plot importance.
Yeah.
There's no developments that affect any of the like overarching stories, so it's just not as important of an episode.
Yeah, that was a great idea, and like immediately when you suggested that, I was like, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it's a good pairing.
Yes.
Let's start though with the A plot in episode 3, which is of course the return of our beloved Spike.
How can I thank you, you mysterious black-clad hunk of a night thing?
No need, little lady. Your tears of gratitude are enough for me. You see, I was once a badass vampire, but love and a pesky curse defanged me. And now I'm just a big, fluffy puppy with bad teeth. No, not the hair. Never the hair.
But there must be some way I can show my appreciation.
No. Helping those in need's my job. And working up a load of sexual tension and prancing away like a magnificent poof is truly thanks enough.
I understand. I have a nephew who's gay, so...
Say no more. Evil's still afoot. And I'm almost out of that Nancy boy hair gel I like so much. Quickly, to the Angel Mobile. Away! Go on with you. Play the big strapping hero while you can. You have a few surprises coming your way. A ring of Amara, a visit from your old pal Spike, and oh yeah, your gruesome, horrible death.
I love the music at the end there. It's so dramatic.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
that is
Spike.
One of my favorite scenes out of both series was that scene, and I rewatching it again, I can tell I even loved it when it first came out because the way I remember that scene is like a core memory. And one of the things that stuck out to me during this watch was, aw, Spike, it's nice to know we never really grow out of talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 126 and he's still talking to himself. I'm like, that tracks.
Yeah. It's a fun game. I've done this in like restaurants. You like see, 2 or 3 people across the room and they're having some kind of animated conversation and you're like, all right, he cheated on her. And then she's staying with him for the kids, but he's going to pay. Like, you just sometimes you could just see a story, whether it's real or not.
Yeah, I'm making it up and then it's like she cheated on him with his dad. Like,
dun, dun.
Really...
And then for Spike to do the voices and
my gosh.
And he just
so funny.
The sort of chemistry of hate, grudging respect, absolute disgust that exists between Spike and Angel is one of my favorite things about this whole universe.
They're so family.
Yeah.
They're so family.
They hate each other and they just keep being thrown together and having to deal with each other. And it's comic gold.
It really is.
Time.
It's one, like you said, like it's one of my favorite aspects of the series. And it's just, I just love it. It's so, so funny. And I do like, I think there was like an older episode where maybe it was you and Kara, I can't remember, my brain's a little fried at this point. So there is mention that Angel and Spike did have a hookup in the past, which tracks.
There's a reference to it,
where he says like it's in later seasons, but like he says like, yeah, Angel and I weren't together except for that one time, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
the
I
whirlwind
mean,
all hung out.
yeah, Darla and Angel and Drusilla and Spike like traveled around the world vampiring
Yep.
together, and I'm pretty sure there was a lot of trading of partners
Yeah,
and sex shenanigans that
they're
went on
all
during that time.
they're all so pretty.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's yeah, how would they not? Like just
Yeah,
one night be like, let's try
why
it. Who
not?
knows?
Why not? Yeah.
We don't have
Like,
souls. Like, let's have a good time.
yeah, there's no consequences to this. So
Eh,
like, yeah. And there's
yeah.
no the evening after, I guess, rather than the morning.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
they're so
um
funny. Yeah, it's such
and
a great thing.
this was a time when there weren't a lot of openly queer characters, so
Hmm.
having little bits of Easter eggs for the queer community
Yes.
was such a boon. It was something people really held
Hmm.
on to, like, oh, that's queer coded, or oh,
Yeah.
they're acting like exes more than they are like enemies. Like
Old married
it's
couple.
it's really there's I mean, we could talk about it more in spoilers, but there's so much good Spike and Angel stuff to come
Yes.
in the future.
Very much so. Their
In
their tension kind of reminds me of Faith and Buffy. Just
Yeah,
Faith and Buffy are more intense and serious, and Spike and Angel are maybe what Buffy and Faith would be like around each other if they still didn't like each other 100 years from now.
yeah,
Like
um,
just a similar familiarity in there.
yeah. Spike in this episode is extremely evil, though. Like,
Oh
as
my
much as
goodness.
we love to talk about how much we love him and how entertaining he is, that love is from the whole series. And
Yes.
in these early seasons,
Whew.
I mean, he hired a torturer who's into kids and he torments Angel with
Gosh.
it and he's
Yeah.
enjoying it and he's impatient, like torture him faster. And he's just
Ugh.
scary and evil at this point.
Yes.
The funny is sprinkled in there, but in a few episodes, he's going to start getting a lot funnier.
Yes. Yes.
And
On Buffy. Yeah, no,
yeah,
he was super dark. I think I had text you and Kara and Jim of when I was first rewatching this, I'm like, geez, I forgot that the torturer was a pedophile too.
yeah,
Like, he just sort of throws that line in, is like, and other dirty things with kids. I'm like, ew.
it's so gross. And
So disgusting.
Marcus is so creepy with his like buttoned all the way up shirt and his little glasses and his
Yes.
prim and properness and the way that and this is such a trope, right? The way he takes
Yes.
his torture instruments out and they're lovingly organized and he like lays them out on the
Hmm.
table. That happens in so many TV shows
Yes.
where they're like, look at my instruments of torture. Aren't they beautiful and shiny and clean?
Yes.
Like, it's so creepy,
I mean, he
but it
takes pride
works.
in his work, Penny.
Yeah. He really does. And he's all patient about it, which I think is scarier, right? The way he's
Yes.
like, oh, let me first look at his skin and talk to him a little bit and then I'll just ease into it. I
Yeah.
realized while I was watching that scene the first time that I've seen David Boreanaz get tortured a lot. Like a lot.
That's a good point. I had thought about that.
Like
Shirtless tortured.
yeah, he gets tortured on Buffy, he gets tortured on Angel a bunch of times, and he gets tortured on Bones a bunch of times.
Oh, that's right. Booth does get tortured a
Yeah.
bunch.
And then
Yeah.
I haven't watched his Navy SEAL show, but I'd be
He
shocked
also,
if he doesn't
well,
get tortured in that show too.
I watched a few seasons of it. He definitely gets injured.
Mm.
And there's definitely emotional torture in there. It's a little bit different because it's Paramount and they love just sort of like classic, tough guy. I would say a lot of the characters on Paramount do a lot of stoicism. Like,
Yeah,
as
that's
someone who, like, I loved the new Hawaii 5-0, and I watched the Seals one for a while too. Very, they're interesting, obviously. Very kind of one-dimensional at
yeah.
times. Like, they bounce back really fast when they've been shot or stabbed.
No one
Um,
bounces back faster than what's his name on 24? Jack, what's his name? Jack? No.
Jack Bauer, yes.
Jack Bauer. There's one season where they literally drill, they take a drill and they drill
Yes, I
into his,
remember.
like down into his shoulder, like vertically down. And
Yep.
then he like puts on a clean shirt and he's fine.
I remember that.
Oh.
I'm just like, what? Yeah, no, it's wild. It
Uh,
is wild. That is not how the human
Crazy.
body works. Um,
It's
that,
also not how torture works.
yeah.
So torture is something that shows up in a lot of TV and movies. It's
Yes.
dramatic. It makes for compelling visual storytelling, right?
Yes.
There's so many ways you can make it scary. You
Yeah.
have close-ups on the gore, close-ups on the instrument. You show the faces with the emotions. It's always a dark, dank room where somebody's hanging from the ceiling or tied to a table.
Yeah.
And it makes great TV. I get it.
Yes.
In real life, there have been lots of studies done that torture does not
work.
result
Nope.
in good intelligence. It
Nope.
results in false confessions. It
Mm-hmm.
results in people telling you whatever they think you want to hear.
Yep.
And it also completely destroys any ability to recruit a prisoner to your side. To
Yep.
be like, your old
Yep.
team didn't treat you very well, but here's we'll treat you better if you just tell us where the bomb is or whatever.
Yep.
Won't work if you've tortured the person.
Nope, not at all. One of my one of my favorite episodes of Criminal Minds is, I believe it was in the first or second season with Gideon. Have you ever watched Criminal Minds?
Mm-mm.
It's a really intense show. It's about criminal profilers, and it's, looking back on it, it's definitely an episode of its time. It's very politically offensive. The episode in the beginning is with Gideon, so that wonderful Mandy Patinkin, and he's a criminal profiler attempting to use psychology to interrogate essentially someone from Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, so a Middle Eastern person who reportedly had ties to terrorists that were targeting an American site. And in that episode, like he says, like, you can't physically torture this person. He will just he'll tell you whatever you want to hear, but there's no guarantee that it's the truth. And then he goes on to use psychological manipulation in a really clever way, where, essentially it's just he speeds up the time
Mm-hmm.
by using prayers, by using different things, because there's no light or anything in the interrogation room. And so he gets the guy to confess where the location is by the guy thinking it's already happened. See, like,
Oh,
no one will
clever.
be able to go into a mall at any time. And it was really smart, but they never laid a hand on this prisoner. And that's how they got that truth. And it's Hollywood magic. But at the end of the episode, the other FBI profiler goes like, "How did you know you'd have to trick him?" And he said, "I knew the moment I stepped in." Like, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's very inappropriate now. Obviously, it plays on a lot of stereotypes, but that's true. Like, Stockholm syndrome, I think, is another one that comes up. That comes from your captor being nice to you and
Yeah.
taking care of your needs, not by torturing you. And even then, that's an unhealthy attachment that actually forms really quickly. It makes the person psychologically unknowable and unpredictable.
Yeah. And I also I'm so glad that studies have shown that torture doesn't work and that, the
Mhm.
CIA has come out with a report that says
Yeah.
torture doesn't work, doesn't stop them from doing it. But
Yeah.
uh, Gitmo,
Yeah.
Abu Ghraib, there's a lot of incidences of the US torturing, let alone other
Mhm.
countries. And
Mhm.
um, I think that it's not only sort of evil in terms of the effect it has on the person or the population that's being tortured,
Mhm.
but it's so dehumanizing to the person who is committing the acts
Yep.
that, and I feel like as a taxpayer, as a citizen, by extension, it's dehumanizing of all of us to have
It
a
is.
government represent us that is willing to torture.
I absolutely concur. It's like, at what point are we no longer the good guys? Like, what like there has to be a line in the sand that we're the good guys, that we're supposed to win. And if it's win at any cost, I think it falls into that saying of, I think it was in Frankenstein, of like, when you're hunting the monster, make sure you don't become it.
Yeah.
And so like there's got to be lines in the sand, otherwise we're no better than the people who are hurting other people. And it's an interesting thing to see, like, force, I think, is just anger makes us feel productive, force makes us feel productive, but it's really not. I
It's
mean,
counterproductive. Yeah.
yeah, like, anger to defend yourself, yes, that is useful. There's so many other ways to work with stuff and to navigate that. Yeah, it ends up crossing a line. And Penny, when you were describing it, it reminded me of another TV show. I think it was Law and Order SVU. It was probably SVU because I remember the character of Dr. George Wong
Oh, I love him.
yeah, he's so good. It was the episode where they looked into the survivors of political torture that the US was doing to
Ugh.
political refugees. And he was going to the centers, and you just see not just the emotional devastation of these poor people, but also like the physical ones. They had permanently, like, just damaged shoulders from being hiked up. I mean, in this episode, Angel's a vampire. He can heal and move forward like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But real people, like, people think waterboarding is more humane, like apparently drowning is better or whatever. No, like, it causes lung infections, permanent lung infections, and permanent lung tissue damage. And that's not even including the psychological stuff. But I remember that episode was ripped from the headlines about, like, there's no such thing as humane torture. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
So it's really a disturbing part of humanity that we continue to bring up, like, to continue to have in our society.
Yeah, and there are people who just are so dedicated to the idea that it works that they will not hear evidence. They will
Nope.
not listen. They are determined that torture is somehow efficient and important and justified. And it's ended friendships for me. The
Mm-hmm.
the the things that came out during the Second Gulf War, during
Mm.
around the time, like, after this show was airing,
Yeah.
were really disturbing and caused a lot of arguments and debates and fallout in my social circles at
Mm.
the time. And,
Yeah.
if somebody's pro torture, I'm happy to have them not be in my life anymore.
Yeah.
But the process of finding out that people are pro torture is pretty upsetting.
Yeah, like, cuz it does it reminds me of, like, people who really support the death penalty.
Yeah.
And it's like this emotional pull towards an idea of
Yeah.
justice and righteousness, where, like, yeah, but if you actually look at facts and statistics and use the logic part of your brain, like, innocent people have been put to death. Innocent people have been tortured. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm about. And they're like, well, it prevents crime. No, it doesn't, because we still have crime.
Yeah,
So,
it
like,
does not. There's so
what?
I mean, I could go on about the death penalty forever, but
Oh, yeah.
there's so much evidence that it
Yes.
doesn't
No.
prevent crime, that
No.
it doesn't that it costs more money, that it's used
Yep.
incorrectly, that it's racially
Oh,
disproportionate,
100%.
and
100%.
that there are so many flaws in the system that allow all these injustices to happen.
Mhm.
I I've always been anti-death penalty because I just think
Mhm.
that killing should be reserved for when you absolutely have no other
Yes.
option.
In defense of
And
your life or someone else's.
if you've
That's
imprisoned someone,
yeah.
you're done. And,
Yep.
families of, like, murder victims have said, and it's not true across the board, but
Mhm.
that the person being executed does not help with their emotional
No,
recovery. It doesn't make them
it
feel
doesn't.
better. It doesn't
Nope,
bring
it
them a
does not.
sense of justice or
Nope.
closure. And it's just
Yeah.
violence done in the name of the state for no good reason. And it, it makes me
Yeah.
so angry.
It's yeah, like, and that's a great point of, like, this stuff doesn't fix anything. And it's an illusion that people think it does. And that's the justification for torture, right? Like, we need
Yeah.
to prevent this stuff from happening. I'm mindful that there's probably things happening that I have no idea about, and they've prevented a lot of stuff, absolutely. I have a hard time believing torture is the only way to do it. And
Yeah.
also, we're a global community. Maybe there's other ways to do this. But yes, that's not healing, and it is disproportionate. Also, I'm a petty
Yeah.
toenails.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a petty toenails person. Um, if someone hurts someone or kills someone in my family, I want them to suffer in jail forever. Like,
Yeah.
why
But
why
that's
why do they
why
get a
you're
quick
not
out?
in charge
Yeah,
of deciding what happens to that person
yeah.
because
Like,
it,
go and live as an animal in a cage then. What do you mean you get a quick
yeah.
out? Like, that's been my opinion too. Because, like, hey, because they're like, well, what if someone in your family is murdered? Then I don't want them to get a quick out. Also, like, just an icky side factor for people who are pro torture and death penalty, which death penalty could be seen as the ultimate torture,
Yeah.
um, is that medical doctors often refuse to be in charge of that. So no one with a medical degree is in charge of the executions, which makes sense. It goes against medical ethics
Yeah,
and
do no harm.
psychological ethics, that do no harm. So they frequently have people who have no medical expertise doing these executions. So that's horrific.
Yeah.
And just, it offends me as a person, as does torture.
Yeah. Not a
Um,
fan at
no,
all.
no.
There was a Senate committee in the sort of 2009, 2010
Mm,
timeframe that investigated all of this Guantanamo Bay,
yeah.
waterboarding, all the stuff that was happening under George W. Bush.
Mm,
And they said that claims of useful information being extracted from suspects that underwent enhanced interrogation, which is what they were calling it at the time, concluded that critical and valuable information was not obtained using these methods. The
mm-hmm.
6,700-page Senate Intelligence Committee report on CIA torture, which we'll link in the
Jeez.
show notes, also concluded that the CIA had repeatedly and deliberately impeded oversight and misrepresented the effectiveness of torture as an interrogation technique to policymakers and to the public through coordinated leaking of false information.
Yep. And I'm going to add in there, as a psychologist, it was big news in our grad school when it was leaked out that clinical psychologists were involved in assisting in the psychological torture of these prisoners. Um, there was only two, I believe, because yeah, it goes against our codes. Like, I get it. If the
It's
government tells you to do it,
so
you don't
unethical.
have a
Yeah.
choice. But, like, I mean, it's really, I mean, I remember people being in tears in our class when we were discussing it, because that's just not what you go into this profession to do. And the very idea that our skills were being used to hurt people very much is like, that's just very unsettling. But yeah, like, that it's just not effective. So it, remains curious of, like, why do we still do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not effective. And I actually saw the person Zimbardo. I actually saw Dr. Zimbardo speak at my undergrad school. Um, Obviously before his death. We didn't use a Ouija board, but, like, a really highly paid medium.
Yeah.
But he presented on what it did to the soldiers of Guantanamo Bay, because it was very
Fascinating.
similar to his experiment that he learned from, of just how easy it is to dehumanize other humans and what that does to you as a person. And he was a part of those investigations of how our poor soldiers, like, were just, like, really psychologically damaged in the line of duty, and encouraged to do so. I mean, they did horrific things to those poor prisoners, and that changes you as a person
Yeah.
forever. You know, everything from assault to humiliation to, I mean, when you dehumanize a group of people like that, there's no coming back from it. So he was sharing, just, the collateral damage was these soldiers who did this. And how, like, say, hey, guess what? After they leave Guantanamo Bay, they come back to live here.
Yeah.
So, like, these people who try to go about and have a life and their family and friends and their kids, it's like, yeah, this isn't who went in onto duty to do that. So no one wins. We didn't get the information and everyone suffered.
It's evil, and it's inexplicable to me the way that people will defend it. And
Yeah.
there was that famous memo that somebody in the Department of Justice wrote
Mm.
about enhanced interrogation techniques are legal. And at the time, I was early in my legal career, and I was like, how could this lawyer write this? And then I met a lot of
Oh.
lawyers, and I was like, oh, there's so many of them that would have written this. Uh, there's
Oh.
just a whole lot of lawyers who are like, if my boss is going in one direction and pays me, that's the direction I'll go. Like, I am not that person. I have to
Yeah.
always be true to my morals
Yeah.
and values, and it has definitely prevented me from some career opportunities, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
There are
You have to
definitely
be able to
things I
sleep
was
at
like,
night.
I'm not doing that for any amount of money.
Mm.
Like, no. Um,
Yeah.
I just, bleh. uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be able to sleep at night and live with yourself and
exactly. But
absolutely.
it makes for interesting TV. I totally get it.
Yeah.
There's torture in so many TV shows that I love. Walking Dead has a bunch of different
Oh my
torture
gosh, yeah.
scenes.
Yeah, they
Um,
do.
some by the good guys, some by the bad guys. And
Mhm.
there is a little bit of debate in season 2, like, is torture something we should be doing? It shifts very quickly to, is
Yeah, it
murder
does.
something we should be doing?
And
Um,
even that starts
yeah.
to go by the wayside. I mean, it's the apocalypse. I can see, like,
Yeah.
if you don't have an organized society,
The the
things can get a little crazy.
the calculation of necessity is very different in those
Yes.
circumstances. Uh,
100%.
there was also torture in Firefly, another JW
Oh,
show,
yeah.
and the torturer in that case was all, "Oh, the pain lets me see the truth of you. I get to the real person," and that
Oh,
was Marcus's
yeah.
thing in this too. So
Yeah.
that's like a JW trope.
Yikes.
Um,
That's,
it's a
little
it's a
haunting,
it's a
everything we know
belief
about him.
that a lot of people have, that, like, if somebody is in extreme duress, whether that's like pain or fear, that their true self will come out. And I just don't believe that's true. I
It's not
think when you're in
accurate.
extreme duress, there's only part of your
No.
personality that can even function, right?
Exactly. It's your fight or flight instinct. It's all emotion based. You're yeah, no, that's not your truest self. I would say that's your
It's your
animal
primal
self.
self, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like the
yeah, like
amygdala takes
yeah, it's
over.
like you just regress someone back a couple 100,000 years, but that doesn't mean that that's their true selves.
Yeah. And
Especially if you're
then
trying to get information from them, like that's the wrong part of the brain.
it's another trope I've seen in a lot of sort of sci-fi shows. Like, I feel like this happened in Alias too, was like
Mhm.
the torturer being like weirdly philosophical and poetic about it, and like listening to classical music and dressing very primly like Marcus did, is all
Yeah.
part of this TV version of the torturer as this like detached,
Cool. Yeah.
philosophical, like inquisitive, like, I'm just trying to study the human condition character. And uh, I don't know, is it glorifying the torturer? It kind of is.
Mm.
It's a weird trope.
It
Like,
very much is,
at
yeah.
least on Walking Dead they didn't do that. They had like Daryl go in and just like punch the guy with his like hillbilly accent. They didn't pretend it was
Yes.
like some effete educated
Yeah.
hobby.
Yeah, and, like, for them, it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm with you, like, it's for me, when I look at shows like The Walking Dead, that is a different thing than what we're living in now.
Yeah.
Like, that is I think, the movie The Mist talks a lot about it, which, Frank Darabont, who originally started the TV show The Walking Dead and stuff like that. Um, yeah, like, there's a quote in that movie that has always stuck with me where one of the characters says, yeah, you put more than two humans in a room and we're going to go at each other and pick sides. When you take away someone's ability to dial 911 to get help, people start getting crazy really quickly. And it's like, that is true.
Yeah.
Like,
Losing
we're very organized right now.
civilization, being outside of society's rules, you
Mhm.
don't know which way people are going to break. It's one of the reasons why I love Walking Dead, is watching
Yeah, same.
people either come into their own or completely
Mhm.
fall apart.
Yep.
And it's fascinating. And I don't know if that's how, if any of those things is how I would react to the apocalypse. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be an
Mhm.
early death, so we'll never find out.
No.
But I mean, I live in
No.
Boston. If it's a nuclear attack, like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like, the Eastern Seaboard will all entirely be destroyed by
Yeah, it's true.
any enemy. So, I'm
That's
okay
true.
with it. I've come to
Yeah.
accept it.
Although in The
Yeah.
Last of Us, Boston was okay.
Yeah, that was a mushroom virus, so
Yeah. Talk
um
about haunting stuff about society going away.
yeah,
Those cold opens.
that
They
is
do more. Season 2's coming out.
that's an amazing show. I was a guest on the Cast of Us podcast last week for an episode about the deadly flu virus that rips through the prison. And
Mhm.
I don't know why, but we got onto the topic of, like, killing people in the apocalypse and when is it okay and when is it not okay. And I was like, oh, I don't think
Yeah.
you should kill people unless you absolutely have to. And I was like, or cannibals. I'm fine. Open season on cannibals. And so many people have texted me and been like, okay, so you're okay with killing cannibals? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. Fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's it all it takes is an empty tummy, and then
Yeah.
then you're on the menu.
Mm.
That's such a tough thing because it's like it's where we are now, and I gotta say, in the apocalypse, even from what I've seen, if you ain't in my group, I might actually have to kill you. Because it never seems to end really well. Like 9 times out of 10, it ends poorly. That also includes when our main group goes to new places.
Yeah, our main group is not without their own flaws. That's
They're
for
like the
sure.
execution squad, but yeah,
They're
like,
agents of chaos.
yes, they are very much proof that you don't trust strangers is in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I was so it sort of like it made me laugh. I don't know why, but my brain kind of like circled back around. How Spike got Angel knocked out to be taken to the executioner. That seemed like I had to suspend my disbelief for a second. Like,
It was
really?
such an
That's all it
obvious
took?
trap. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
I
was just
know.
like,
I was very
meh, like you're just
disappointed
like,
in Angel.
yeah, right. Like you're not gonna kick him, headbutt him. No, you're just like, all right. Like,
And he
I don't
should have
know.
been suspicious when Spike runs into that alley, right? And he comes to the
Yeah.
chain link fence and he's like, oh, I guess I'm caught. He's a
Yeah.
vampire. He could just leap over that fence. And when he doesn't,
Yes.
Angel should have been like, oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, something's up. And
Like, am I
it's
standing on a
Spike.
net? Like, what is happening? Yeah.
It's like a Looney Tunes.
And, like, he knows that Spike isn't that dumb. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
he knows.
Yeah. He
And
knows.
he fell
And
for it.
yeah, and it's like you already know Spike's falling around. The only thing that kind of pops into my head is Angel wanted to just get this over with because he knew Spike was going to go after Cordy and Doyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like maybe, but I mean, if that was what happened, it wasn't telegraphed. But yeah, like just when the executioner grabbed him, I'm like, sir,
Mm,
you are like so much older than him.
yeah,
But
like,
like,
do better.
okay.
Um,
But
the episode
yeah,
had a lot of, like, fun moments too, right?
yeah.
Just having Oz on the show is great. Oz got
I
to
love
be
how
really
everyone loves
cool.
Oz.
Every moment he's on screen, he's so Oz, and it's so delightful. Like, the way he and Cordelia catch up, and she's like, "Oh, we have so much to talk about," and it's like 2 sentences, and and then he's like, "Are we done?" And she goes, "Completely." And it was
Yes,
just,
complete. I love it, and I love how everyone loves Oz. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
everyone,
even Spike liked Oz.
yeah.
I saw the exchange.
Yeah,
I'm like,
there is coolness
like,
there that is
yeah,
undeniable, and
yeah,
everyone responds to it. It
yeah.
is so great. And he and Angel are like, sup, sup.
What's up?
Like, we understand each other. We're men of few words. Like, they've always had the two of them have always had an understanding, which is really adorable. And
So funny.
and then the fact that Doyle was like calling him apparently Little Bam Bam at the pub, and I kind of wish that we could have seen that scene. Like, it
That
seems
would've
really
been
hilarious.
amazing. That's
So
amazing.
goofy. Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
So,
Oz
so
got to
funny.
save the day with the like van and the dramatic entrance and the 2 crossbows. Like, yeah,
Right?
that was cool.
Like, I legit forgot about that when
Yeah.
I was rewatching. I'm like, how is he going to get out of this?
Me too.
Because
I said out loud, how are they going to get him out of this?
because they were like, I also forgot like the part where like Spicus Interruptus when like Angel goes to like slay the executioner, and then Spike stops him, and I was like, oh, damn it, Spike.
Yeah.
Like,
And then when Angel's so great, right? He's like, Spike, you really think this guy's going to let you have the ring? And Spike's like, he doesn't care about the ring. And I'm like, you're an idiot, Spike.
yeah. Like
that's-
you are way over, so there is something to that where both Spike and Angel get their obsession with each other gets in the way of their typical planning and behaviors.
Yeah.
Like, it just sort of throws them in a way that other characters don't to them, and there are parts of it, like I'm thinking back to Buffy season 3 episode where he's just being wild about it, and this is not the calculating person who went after the Slayer on Parents' Night and was very coordinated and got the Cinder of Death thing, the judge.
Oh,
The judge.
Oh, right.
Like,
the whole big thing with an arm in a box. Yeah.
yeah. Yes. Like, also the thing with the arm in the box. Like, Spike's usually pretty planned out, but yeah, that goes out the window with these two.
Spike
Like, he
always
wanted
has
to torture
minions.
Angel so badly. Yeah.
He loves having a minion. He's
He
like,
does.
I'm like, how did you get this minion in Los Angeles so fast? But, he did. He's got a minion.
Right? Like, he's probably just, cashing in on the being part of the whirlwind and being like, me, Spike the Bloody. Which
Yeah. And they're all like,
I don't know
ooh,
what that
Spike.
actually stands for.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he recruited that minion because the minion wanted the Ring of Amara.
Yeah. That guy's not dumb. He sees like something that's extremely powerful. He takes it. Like,
Yeah.
he's a bad
It's
guy.
like-
That's what bad guys do.
Right? Like, Spike just wanted to torture Angel to get the Ring of Amara. And, like, he didn't think this far out.
Yeah.
Which also, speaking of the Ring of Amara, that is a really easy thing to take off your enemy.
Yeah. I know. I'm
see
like,
this
put that on and then put super glue
That's a good point.
around the seal. Like,
That's a good point.
and does it have to be on your finger? Could you put it like on your toe and then put your boots on over it? Like,
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
there's got to
see?
be a way
Smart.
to like not have it just on your finger, so easy to take
Yeah.
off. Also, very convenient that everyone's fingers are the same sizes. That's great.
That it'll fit Harmony, it'll fit Spike, and it'll fit Angel.
Yeah, ring fits everybody. Word, no problem.
The sisterhood of the traveling ring. It just magically goes and fits everyone. But yeah, I was like, that ring is just really easy to take off of people.
Yeah, it's not that powerful if you can just lose it and then get. I love that he was staked already, and then Angel took the ring off of him, and then the stake took effect. That was such a great. And the whole fight under the pier was really fun with the like they're soaking wet and the shadow and the sun right outside the shadow and like
Yes,
that was
a little
some
bit of
high
suspension
drama.
of disbelief of. There was a little bit. I mean, we're watching a show about vampires, so I think I have to let a lot of it go. But it's like the movie Underworld did this too. Underneath the pier is getting reflections of sunlight off the water.
The sunlight
It's
rules
for
in
great
Buffy
TV.
are sort of they're sort of light, right? Like how many times has Spike been in the sun and like thrown his coat over his head and
That's
been
true.
okay? Like
That is true.
They play fast and loose with the sunlight on the show.
That is very true.
Um,
So,
yeah.
speaking of the Ring of Amara,
hmm
I was thinking about this when I was watching this two-part storyline. What would you do if you had the Ring of Amara?
If I
Makes you
were a
invincible.
vampire?
If you are you.
If I was me right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it worked on you to make you invincible.
Oh,
Not
to make
just
me
demons.
invincible.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd
You
be
can't be harmed.
fun. Um, would it also give me the energy to do stuff while I was invincible? That would be nice.
It would probably restore your energy.
Very quickly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would get in the way of some bad behavior. I think I'd start patrolling the streets at night and getting in the way of
Nice.
people doing bad stuff.
I think that would be great. What would be your vigilante name?
Oh God, I've never thought
I
of
know I'm
this
putting you
before.
on the spot.
I do know that my vigilante costume would include purple.
Ooh, yes. So your signature color.
Yeah, and maybe cat ears, maybe something cat related.
Ooh,
Um,
I like it.
I can't
Catwoman's
be
already taken.
Catwoman,
I
and
know.
I'm not putting on a skin tight leather outfit, but maybe something more plausible. The paw of justice or something.
Oh, I love it.
To leave little paw prints at the scene.
Yes, your signature.
Yeah,
The
little
paw,
purple
the
paw
paw of
print.
justice.
Yeah,
I love it. And they call you Justice for short.
yeah.
It's Justice.
How about
Ooh,
you?
the
What would you
paw
do
of
with
justice. The paw of justice is too cool.
it? Oh,
I can't compete with the paw of justice. Because when I was watching the episode, I was like, what would I do with that ring if it worked on humans
Yeah.
and made me invincible to harm? Similar, I would probably like Jessica Jones it
yeah.
and open up, or like I guess Daredevil too, but I would open up a private detective agency similar to Angel.
Mhm.
And more Jessica Jones it because she's impossible to harm. Right? She's hard to harm, but like not
She
impossible.
has
Super
super
strength.
strength. I don't
And
know
she's
exactly what her powers are. If she has like
super strength.
super
and then
healing or anything.
yeah,
But she
yeah.
certainly seems pretty indestructible.
Yeah, she's pretty
Mostly
hardy.
she hurts herself.
Yeah, and it doesn't work on the psychological stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would kind of Jessica Jones it, Angel Investigations it. I'd start a private detective agency, and then that way people could come to me. I could go out on my own, and yeah, I definitely would never want to be regulated by the government, though.
Yeah. So in
the Avengers called it.
Yeah, in
Don't let them
Captain
regulate you.
America Civil War, you were Team Cap. Me too.
He
I don't trust the
called
government.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, we just found out how many Hydra agents there are in the government. Were you not listening?
Exactly, and they're not completely gone, remember? Oh, the time when Nazis were seen as evil and defeated. And they did come back.
Yeah, they sure did. Chop off the head and you get another head.
Yeah, exactly. That is one of my future favorite Angel episodes. Is the
Nazi one.
submarine one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love it so much. When I remember when I first watched it, I didn't, but I remember on a rewatch a couple of years back, just all the nuance in it. But I appreciate everything about it in that storyline. But we're a whiles away from it.
Yeah.
So I would do that. My name though, I didn't think about my name. I sprung that on you because I was curious. I'm like, what would your name be, Penny?
Yeah.
The Paw of Justice is great. Yeah. Probably call it Loki Investigations.
Oh, nice.
Chaos. Maybe just Chaos Theory.
That's a great name. Are you kidding? I'd be terrified of Chaos Theory. I'd be like,
right?
No. Oh,
that'd be great.
So she's either an agent of chaos or a super mathematician. Either way, I'm afraid.
And if you ever meet me, you'll know exactly which one it is. Like that just reminds me of one of my supervisors a very long time ago when I first started out, she was just laughing and she was like, you would be the perfect person to go and commit crimes because no one would ever think it was you.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I have to be able to sleep at night.
Also, if the crime involved not laughing for an extended period of time, I don't think you could do it.
It's not possible.
Like, you'd be
Well, the
like
only-
all stealthy, trying to like, steal the jewels from a museum or whatever, and be like, ha 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 ha, ha, and they'd be like, it's Sam.
I would. I'd have like a funny thought. I'd be like, my that would be like in the police station. They have people line up, but instead of visuals, they have to do a giggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's if you want to see me not laugh or giggle for a while, see me at work.
Yeah. Nothing funny about the work that you do.
No, I'm very, very kind of stoic in that hostile environment. My patients are wonderful. We actually, yeah, we giggle a little bit. Mostly because I use humor, but yeah, no, I think that would be a chaos theory.
Nice.
Chaos theory was here, and then they'd be like, this toenail can't be chaos theory. It's like, aww. I would have to learn how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
Which I have not done.
Do you think Angel made the right decision to destroy the ring?
I think he made the emo decision to destroy the ring. I mean, I think he just really likes that aesthetic. I mean, he is full on emo.
Yeah.
You got a real addiction to the brooding part of life. Anyone ever tell you that?
I narratively, I guess, if I was on his team, I would bring up maybe have it in safekeeping in the eventuality that you need to go out in the daylight to save someone. In the eventuality, I get it. He is right, I think, for me, when he said, like, they have people during the day to save them. I'm there at night when people forget about them at night. And I can see that happening. He is right with that. He also doesn't just fight vampires. So, like, demons can come out in the daytime and, I'm pretty sure there are some episodes where he needed to be out in the daytime.
Yeah.
And so, like, that could have been useful to have in the future as a backup.
Yeah. I understood
But I guess
what he
maybe
was
he had a worry
saying
other
about,
vampires
like,
would show up.
if I spend too much time in the sun, I'll forget about those people. I
Mhm.
won't pay attention to them as much. And I also think that, he has that conversation with Doyle where Doyle is like, this is redemption. And he's like, no, it's not. Like,
No, yeah,
redemption
I
is
do agree,
earned.
yeah.
It's not something that like
Yeah.
falls out of the sky and makes your life better. That's
Yeah.
not redemption. That is a windfall.
Yeah.
And I don't know about destroying it. I think there probably was some way to secure it and hide it. It seems like such a
Yeah.
wildly valuable thing, but I understand the choice to destroy it.
Yeah.
He was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk it, someone like Spike or this Marcus guy getting their
Yeah.
hands on it. I don't want to have to be always worried about protecting its location.
That is true.
I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to use it. Like, I'm just going to destroy it. But it is kind of like, oh my God, that's like thousands of years. Oh, okay, it's gone.
Yeah, like, I mean, he is the only vampire we would ever want to have it, and it would be nice if the only sold vampire was invincible to harm since he's fighting for the good guys and is one of the few people who can actually go toe-to-toe with demons and monsters and vampires. Would be nice to make him immortal in there, but yeah, I like you were saying good points, Penny, of like, yeah, then he'd have to make sure he would have to make sure he's protecting it, and that would eventually, especially narratively, fall in the wrong hands.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to slip off someone's finger, even if they are all the right size. So, it eventually would cause problems, unless he figured out my idea of super gluing it to himself.
Right? And I mean, he doesn't, well, he does sweat, but like,
I know.
I don't think his skin flakes off. Like, I don't think that would be much of a problem, except, him and his, addictive personality. He would probably keep it on all the time.
Yeah.
Although he's doing a good job not drinking human blood, so who knows?
I did think in the torture scene it was really funny because he was like heaving, his breath was really labored, and I was like, vampires don't breathe, and it jumped out at me because I very recently watched a couple of the Twilight movies, and there's a scene in the second one where Edward is being like held by these other vampires, and he's got no shirt
Volturi,
on.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his shirt is it's like attractively unbuttoned and like flowing. And he's got like perfect carved abs, and he is breathing really heavily. The way that you would if you were a human being held by two vampires. And I'm like, that is vampires don't breathe. And I mean, it's very like, it makes us all look at his perfect abs, but like, and then when Angel was breathing, like the next day I watched that episode and I was like, here's another vampire, just like
Yes. It's
just,
like, even us humans don't do it that much, let alone immortals.
yeah.
Yeah, like, and like, that is such a good point. It was very funny to watch. It's like, is this sort of like a mental stealing of yourself? Because you don't need to breathe. Speaking of which, I did appreciate that although fit, David Boreanaz did not have the stereotypical Marvel six-pack, which is ridiculous for any human to ever achieve.
Oh my god, the things that those guys go through for the shirtless scenes, like they have to get severely dehydrated.
Yeah.
And then like they're so weak that like the second they're done filming it, they practically faint, and then they can like finally drink water again. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And also, someone who looks like that is not eating carbs, so
yeah,
I have nothing to talk about. like I guess I'll go eat dinner and you can drink your water and green juice or something. Like
it's not my personal taste either.
It's
like
not mine
I can look at like a Chris Hemsworth and I can understand why that is beautiful, and I see that he has a very, gorgeous jacked up body, but personally, it's not what I am attracted to.
Same.
Like,
I want something to cuddle with. That's not
a little more realistic. I actually tend to like really skinny guys, like really skinny.
I'm a big fan of the dad bod. I'm a big fan of it. It's more cuddly.
Yeah,
I want more cuddles.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I've dated guys that are like gym buffs, and boy, it did not last long. And like, but it's not cuddly.
No.
It's like, ouch.
Yeah, exactly. I think David Boreanaz is plenty built in the scene and does not need the washboard abs. He looks great.
No, this was more attractive to me than the washboard abs and everything. Of like, I liked, normal looking people.
Yeah.
It's
those
like
bodies, the Jason Momoas and the Chris Hemsworths, those bodies are a male fantasy, it's not a fantasy for most women. It's a power fantasy for men. They want to look like this big, huge, strong superhero. And
yeah, it's like, it's attractive, but it's like, so like, that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah,
and because we look at the lifestyles that probably come with that too.
Yeah,
it's like,
like,
no,
you go to the gym for 9 hours a day? That sounds great.
Yeah. Oh no, I dated a bodybuilder, not for very long.
Yeah.
And it was not the reason I went out with him, but it was the reason it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know, like, I know some women probably like that, but no one in my friend group. Like, it's pretty, and like, just like,
it's great on a movie screen.
Bodies, yeah. Like, I mean, I can appreciate the bodies, and it's very nice. But in real life, dating someone, it's like, no, I want to get Italian tonight.
Yeah, like,
what?
Yeah. What do you mean you're on another cleanse? Like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Be healthy and comfortable. That's key.
Yeah, and happy.
I know. Like, enjoy life. I want to have someone who will have good food with me.
Yeah. When Chris Pratt got all ripped for the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, somebody in an interview asked him about how he did it, and he was like, "Oh, I gave up fun."
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and they were like, "What do you mean?" He's like, junk food, cheese, dairy, bread, beer. He just started listing like all the things he
Yeah.
couldn't have while he was building that body, and it sounded miserable. And he was like, I just gave up fun. I just couldn't have any more fun. And
Gave up fun and worked out all the time, had a private trainer. That's all they do.
yeah,
So it's like there's not a lot going on there. But like, yeah, I want to get ice cream after dinner. Like
Yeah.
he's not getting ice cream after dinner.
yeah.
And I like my ice cream.
I want that fake butter on my popcorn.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Pratt is not eating any fake butter.
No.
Hemsworth isn't either.
No.
But like, yeah, I like that stuff. Also, Hemsworth's wife, she's not eating that butter either. She's got a banging body too.
Yeah.
But not the kind that I would want.
Neither of
because
them
I like
looks
my butter.
fully human. Both of them look to me like somebody's like
Right.
created some kind of like robot ideal human. It's very strange. And they're children too. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
God.
just gorgeous. Well, they also like live on like a farm, and that's a lot of hard work and
Yeah.
like moving around and everything. But speaking of unrealistic celebrities, I did like that when Cordy had the crossbow aimed at Spike, she said, once you're done doing the full Johnny Depp over.
Yeah.
Nice reminder that Johnny Depp has always been an toenails.
Yeah.
I think that got lost a little bit because people like his movies, and then the trial that should never have been publicized that hurt my mental health, and I didn't even follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's always been a jerk. As talented as he is, he's always been a jerk. So that's not a new thing, and I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I do have a hard time watching his movies now.
Yeah.
It's that's just a part of me. Just why I can watch Buffy and Angel even though JW wrote it because his face isn't on the screen.
Exactly. And so many other people worked on it that I still like want to support all those people.
Yeah.
It's not like the Cosby Show where I'm like, oh my God, everything in the show is about this one horrible person. Like it's everything on the Cosby Show. It's too much.
Yeah, and there's like enough positive people. I don't particularly want to watch anything with Amber Heard in it anymore either. That's more of like a personal preference. Like for me, like I just, first of all, there's no such thing as cancel culture. The men come back. So like, like Louis C.K. is still touring and making money.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson, he gonna be at MegaCon for Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
In Florida and MegaCon. So I'm like, no one's suffering. But like for me, I just don't particularly want to see the face of abusers. Like I have not watched any Brad Pitt movies since
all the allegations came out.
Since all this stuff came out, and it's just me. Like I don't particularly
in my
like
head.
Seeing their faces.
Yeah,
I
can't
and they have
not
power
think about
and
it.
privilege. Yeah, so they have power and privilege, and I don't like it. And same thing. I know we had talked about Squid Games. Then after knowing, I don't care about the marijuana thing. Dear God, I know that's one of the biggest controversies. Is one of the actors did weed,
the
and I'm like,
thing.
Dear God, like you have sexual predators on this cast.
Yeah, it was really upsetting because it was like this one and this one and this one and this one all have these horrible pasts, and it's like horrific
past. Yeah,
I really enjoyed watching Squid Game.
I know. And it's like you already hired a sexual predator for the first season, and then you hire you like a whole bunch of them for the second season. Yeah. Where it's
to the point where like the lead, it's like a DUI. I'm like, I can live with a DUI. I can live with a DUI.
Same. It's like bar fight. Yeah. Like, I mean, for reals. I mean, it's not my favorite. Neither one of those are my favorite, but I'm not as judgy in my brain about that.
Yeah.
But if you're a sexual predator,
like,
if
you have no business being employed.
I don't want to see it on my screen. I don't want to see your face.
Yeah.
Like it's, the stuff, I don't even care. Like if, I always believe survivors. So if like all this stuff that, is coming out about Brad Pitt and how he treated his children, his wife, and I'm like, oh, go die in a hole, sir.
Yeah.
Not really metaphorical.
Done with
but
you.
Like, like, dear God, I don't want to see that face.
It's so upsetting because he's an example of somebody who has used his celebrity and power in ways in the past that I have really admired. And to find out that it's like with Neil Gaiman, like the public face and the private face don't match, and it's so deeply disappointing when the public face has done like particularly good things. It's like, oh God, I feel so duped, you know?
Yes, duped.
Yeah. Like, oh God, I can't believe that I fell for that. Like, ugh. I mean, I've never met these people in person, so maybe my instincts would have kicked in if I had been around them in person, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the hard thing is that they're protected, right? Like, this
Yeah.
doesn't happen in a vacuum. And, power is money. And, we do give a lot of celebrities a lot of power for people we've never met. And we
Yeah.
may like them as people. I think really, at least for my, conceptualization of it, we like the characters that they played and the effect those characters had on our lives. That's what we connect to. We don't know this human.
Yeah. I mean, their public persona is just another character that they're playing.
Yep.
Um,
And it reminds me of, speaking of Twilight, poor Robert. I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh because it's a very serious matter.
Mm.
But Robert Pattinson, I think he shared on one of his interviews a couple of years back that there was a woman stalking him.
Oh, I love this story.
And that he took her out for coffee or for dinner, and she never followed him again.
Yeah, he talked to her for like 2 hours straight, and she was like, I'm no longer in love with you.
And the actor finds it funny. It is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Don't ever have, meals with your stalker. But I do find that very funny and just sort of like, yeah, you don't know these people.
Yeah. Like, it's a fantasy. Well, that's a perfect lead in to Melissa and the creepy doctor, because she's
God.
he operated on me, which is an intimate thing, but not a way that you really get to know a person. And then they had one date. And he comes out of their one date with like, I love you forever, and I'm going to take care of you, and I've changed your bank PIN code because it was too easy to guess, and like, I'm protecting you.
Run.
And she's terrified. And, it's interesting because the whole concept of a stalker in the 90s was kind of new. 1990 was the first time that an anti-stalking law in the U.S. was passed in California. And I remember in the 80s and 90s, so many like sort of lurid, exploitative movie of the weeks about stalkers. And it was always a little bit sexy. Like the portrayal of the stalker was always kind of like, isn't this a sexy story? And it,
like Basic Instinct, right?
Yeah, like Basic Instinct, or like Swim Fan is a good one. That's a super stalker story, or Single White Female, or there were a lot of these movies in the 80s and 90s, and stalkers were a topic of conversation. It was in the air. People were talking about it. 96 was when the Violence Against Women Act was passed, and stalking had a federal definition after that. So, here's the show in 1999. Stalking is super relevant. People are talking about it. Now it's so commonly understood that it's a thing that people joke about it. They'll be like, oh, that's my stalker, when it's just like, that's a guy that recognizes me and waves when I walk by him in the park. Like it.
Yeah.
That said, though, I have a lot of people I've known who have had legitimate stalkers.
I'm one of them.
Not
my
surprised.
Very first boyfriend, the very first person I had sex with, stalked me.
That's disturbing.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, like so much about that storyline was uncomfortable to watch because there's power dynamics with a medical team and their patients.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're
as
naked
a clinician
and unconscious with them.
100%. And, whether we like it or not, a doctor has power over us. They have the greater power in the dynamic when we go to see them.
Yeah.
It's like they teach us about it in grad school, about like power dynamics between supervisors, between like me and a patient. I have the greater power in that dynamic, whether either one of us likes it or not. It just is, and there's no getting around it. It just is. And that is just how that works. And it has that, like you said, Penny, that vulnerability. And you see this in the episode. Like, yeah, you can tell a woman helped to write this episode and maybe the other writers had some experience, did some research on stalking, because she says he operated on her, and he asked her out. Okay, nope, that's not allowed. That's not nice. And that's icky. Like, I think a patient can ask a doctor out, and that's a different thing. But like, he asked her out, so he had the greater power in the dynamic. He's the one who's supposed to hold his boundaries and hers.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He asked her out, and she felt uncomfortable, but she said yes anyway, which, she thought she owed him something. Like, this is how it's all messy and gross.
I loved
And
when
like,
she
it's
was
not her fault at all.
explaining the story, and Cordy was like, well, yeah, of course you did. Like, plus
Yeah.
he's a doctor. Of course you went out with him. Like,
yeah. And he saved you, and he has
Cordy
he has the
understood it
power.
immediately.
100%.
And she had like a physical reaction. She was like, my skin is crawling. It's so creepy. Like, I don't know if Cordelia, the character, has ever been stalked, but she had an immediate sympathy and understanding of the situation. And even,
Absolutely.
Angel goes to Kate and he talks to her about the situation. And Kate she has some great lines, but she's like,
I
even
loved
when
her
you
lines.
put this guy in jail, he still wins because he lives in her head. She's already afraid. She's thinking about him. And it's funny. A lot of people don't understand when we say that like sexual violence or stalking is a power crime and not a sex crime. Like, it's not about wanting sex, it's about wanting power. And stalking is about forcing the other person attention to be on you at all times.
And they don't feel safe. It's taking away their sense of safety on purpose.
Yeah.
And then in a way that they can't get it back. And like, which in that line too, like, she needs to get angry. She does, and we see it in the episode. And so, like, angry is how you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
And like, in that moment, and realize that you didn't do anything wrong. He is the problem. He did this to you. And this works for other genders too. So it's like, if you are the target of stalking, you need to get angry so that you can step up and defend yourself. And I don't always necessarily mean physically, but psychologically. And I like the part, like, because I was surprised. We know I don't like Kate. But the part where he goes up to her, Angel, and he says, things are about to get dark because he's stalking her. And she's like, well, if he's stalking her, it's already gotten dark.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
So it just sort of shows, again, there's some throwaway lines, but like the gender differences in there too. And I'm generalizing, but there's a socialization for women that starts for us when we are very little girls that our parents cannot protect us from. And it is being sexualized, followed, stared at by adult men from young ages. Like I'm talking like 6, 7 years old.
And we're taught to be polite to those men, even if they skeeve us out. The current generation of parents are changing this dialogue, and they are teaching their daughters to say, "You're creepy, get away from me," in public to men. And being loud and not being worried about being rude to somebody who is giving you the creeps is the most powerful thing, because they usually approach in increments. And if you're polite in the early stages, even though your instincts are telling you not to be, they will just escalate. So you got to nip it in the bud immediately.
Grooming. Yeah, it's the grooming. It happens in my workplace, and I see it happening. It's happened to me as a female professional. It's just like women are just constantly targets for this, and I think it's because it's outside the awareness of a lot of cisgendered heterosexual men.
Yeah,
I just think like that's just not the life they've ever lived, and I'm sure, like, unfortunately, an adult man may have looked at them strangely when they were children or something. Like,
it does
I'm
happen
sure,
to some men, but it is primarily
not the frequency
women.
It happens to women.
It's something like 70% of stalking victims are women, and it's 2/3 of the time it is a current or former intimate partner, and about 1/4 of the time it's an acquaintance. The idea of a stranger stalking someone is like 10 to 15% of the time. That is not that common. It's usually someone you know. When I was in my legal job, I had to deal with one employee stalking another employee. It was incredibly disturbing.
Jesus.
we fired the one employee, and we reported him to, the police local to where he lived, and they ended up dropping the case. And this is why
Yeah,
I'm
there's
a little
also
sad that Kara couldn't be here, because she has this background as a prosecutor, but stalking is a really tricky crime for law enforcement. And it's because what the person is doing, each individual act is not necessarily a crime, or in and of itself doesn't look scary to the outside observer. It's about a pattern, and it's about them not taking no for an answer. But let's look at the story in the episode. He sends her flowers at work. That's nice. What you don't want flowers from this guy? Oh, he's worried about the security of your bank account. That's so protective. Men are supposed to be the protectors of women. And he's, in this case, like with a lot of shows in the Buffy episodes in the Buffyverse, everything up to the supernatural aspect is completely realistic. Now, being able to pull out your eyeballs and have them go spy on a person separate from your body, as far as I know, is not possible in the real world. God, I hope it's not possible in the real world. But technology has advanced in such a way that it would be so easy for someone to, and people do this, put cameras in other people's homes or near their homes to watch them. And technology can do a lot of what this guy was doing with magic. And it's terrifying, and it's hard to prove, and it's hard to fight against. Women have changed their names and moved to get away from stalkers. It is a problem. And in my mind, it's part of rape culture and just an overall culture of women being treated as objects, even by quote unquote the good men, right? And so I'll post a link to the rape culture pyramid, or pyramid of harm, or pyramid of violence. It's got a lot of different names, but basically what it says is that things that look sort of less serious or innocuous, jokes or dress codes that tell women that their bodies are distracting to boys in school, or, oh, boys will be boys. Stupid. They snap your bra strap. It's not that big of a deal. That all of that forms the base of this pyramid. And all of those little acts that seem like they're not that big of a deal are just the sort of foundation of a culture that leads to, worse and worse things. Following them, stalking them, flashing somebody, catcalling, groping somebody when they don't consent to it, voyeurism, sexual harassment in the workplace, and then on up to, coercion, rape, and eventually death. And these cases often end in death. And then the police afterward are like, oh, well, I wish we had known. And the woman's like, I tried to file 18 different times a complaint about this guy, and you told me I couldn't do anything, and now I'm dead. It's so disturbing.
Well, yeah, and I completely agree. And all this research, it shows this. And, I think this is where no one benefits from the patriarchy. And there's a lot of men are some of the biggest victims of the patriarchy, because they'll talk about, well, why can't women just say no? Or why can't women say, I don't want to date you? Well, do you want all the statistics from 2025 alone of the women who've been murdered because they turned down someone hitting on them? And I'm not talking about someone that they know. I'm talking about
a guy in a bar.
Bars. I mean, there was just a woman who was murdered in the subway station in December. A guy asked her out. She said no. He killed her.
Yeah.
She didn't know him. So it's there's a lot of danger here. So this does impact how everyone can act. Even, the good guys who are I would never do that. How are we supposed to know?
Yeah, we can't tell from looking at you whether or not you are a stalker. And also, there are a lot of guys who exist in the sort of fuzzy low levels of this pyramid who are benefiting from the worse men, right? They're well, I never raped anybody. And it's oh, congratulations. Great,
I haven't murdered anyone. Aren't you happy?
You're so lucky to be with a guy that doesn't beat you every night. Isn't that great?
I know.
The bar is low.
That's great. Yeah, it's sir, I haven't murdered anyone lately. Where's my kudos?
Yeah.
Like, you don't get kudos for baseline human decency.
Yeah. And
Um,
treating women like sex objects at an early age trains them and grooms them to put up with the worst and worst behavior as they get older until someone
Yes.
pushes them too far. And they
Yes.
say no, and then sometimes violence happens.
Yes.
It's a horrible
and I will
society
say,
to live in.
oh yeah, and I will say, like, in my role as a psychologist, I'm very nervous in exploring the options with people who are undergoing domestic violence, and that includes emotional and psychological abuse as well as stalking, because the moment the person puts up resistance or leaves, that is one of the most dangerous times for the person.
Yeah.
It's one of the most as we see in the show, right?
Yeah.
Like when there, of course, when she appeared to be the property of Angel rather than the surgeon, that's when he goes to kill her.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. So, when people say, like, well, you can just leave them. Well, one, there's a lot in there, like financial resources and everything. Yes, like leaving them, it kind of needs to be a goal, especially if there's physical violence.
But
It's
not
not that
simple.
easy, and you should call the police. So this is what I do, because I am always worried. I safety plan with my patients, and I say, you need to call the police. You need to have them be there when you are packing up. And unfortunately, even in New England, we have gotten pushback
Yeah.
of the police saying that's not their job, and that you can hire the police when they're off duty. And I'm here to tell you that's not allowed.
Yeah.
Asked to speak to a sergeant or a chief? Are you kidding me? So, like, just like heads up with that. It is a very dangerous time. Please don't think if you're leaving an abusive person that they're fine because they've never hit you, or you don't know what someone's capable of in these times. And I can tell you the research isn't good. So there's been a lot of research. This study, and we're going to put it in the show notes, is in 2018, where they reviewed domestic violence killings in the United Kingdom, which showed an 8-stage timeline of events before the actual domestic violence homicide takes place. This is accurate. Unfortunately, the biggest predictor of future violence is past violence. It's never he's going to hit you once. I'm sorry, that's not the thing. And they talk about 575 homicide cases involving women killed by men, known as femicide, which is illegal in other countries, but in the U.S. we're just cool with women and girls being murdered. And then they found 372 femicide cases in a 3-year time span. They found 8 steps that were identified to be present in almost all of these murders that were studied. One was a pre-relationship history of stalking.
Yeah.
Or abuse by the perpetrator. Like Penny was saying, I've seen it too. I did it when I was stalked. I brushed it off. I mean, I was 19. And so, like, I just brushed it off. I didn't pay attention to it. And no, that friend still to this day will not tell me what my ex said to him on the phone. And it was bad. And he told me, like, all of us, a bunch of like teenagers in college, and he's like, I think you need to go to the police. This guy's really sick. And I was like, dear God.
Like, oh God.
I mean,
I just thought he was like a dude who
he
hadn't gotten over me. Yeah.
Yeah, like he still won't tell me. Because he thought, hey, give me the phone and maybe he'll stop calling you. He did. Again, another guy coming in and taking the place because, hey, there can't be 2 penises in this heterosexual
Like,
relationship.
a woman saying no is not to be respected, but
no,
she
but
belongs
another man.
to another man, then yeah.
Yeah. So, pre-relationship history of stalking. They're following you around. It's not cute. It's not a romantic comedy, and some of them have that. Or abuse by the perpetrator. Then the next step is the romance develops quickly into a serious relationship. We see these warning signs. People go headlong into a relationship, and it's not always bad, but thinking about that, it turns real serious real quick. They're going to start isolating you from your support network.
Yeah.
It's just a part of it. You don't know this person. That's just not possible. The relationship then becomes dominated by coercive control. taking over the finances, who you can see, what you can wear, what you can eat, where you can go. That's a tough thing. If you're doing it just to make your partner happy, I highly recommend asking your friends and family and asking a therapist. Because I gotta tell you, they can have preferences. They shouldn't be controlling what you're eating, wearing, or going.
Right. Or cutting you off from your family and friends. That is one
No,
of the
that's
biggest red
yeah,
flags.
so bad.
It's like, oh, I
So
don't like
bad.
the way you act when you've been out with your girlfriends. Or are you talking to other men when you go on a girls' night out? And,
Mhm.
it makes me uncomfortable. Or this friend came on to me. You shouldn't be friends with her anymore. It's all suspicious.
It's all bad, and I've said on the podcast, I have been blessed and in some ways cursed with having a really wonderful bunch of guy friends in my life for a lot of years. They're all like in dedicated relationships. They don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Not at all. There's not even like, I trust her, I just don't trust other men. That has never come out of any of their mouths. They're like, yeah, go have fun.
Yeah.
Like, let me know when you're coming home so I know you're alive. Like, like that kind of thing. But like, no, they're not controlling anyone. They treat their partners like equals, not property. The next one, 4, is a trigger threatens the perpetrator's control. For example, the relationship ends or the perpetrator gets into financial difficulties. Any stressor in this person's life can escalate things. That's the problem. Is
Also,
even though if
if
you're
their
not the
team
problem.
loses sometimes.
Oh boy, that's a big one. Domestic. I hate with a passion. I mean, I don't like sports.
Hmm.
I also really hate that Super Bowl Sunday is coming up because I cannot unlearn that that's one of the highest times of domestic violence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's alcohol, and like Penny said, their team loses, and I get it. Like, it's an emotional thing, but that means these abusers are going to take it out on their respective partners, which also domestic violence can be found in all relationships,
Yeah.
not just like purely heterosexual ones. And then there's an escalation, an increase in the intensity or frequency of the partner's control tactics. It's a pet peeve of mine. Threatening suicide.
Oh my God.
Dear God, it is, as a psychologist, it is one of the biggest pet peeves of mine. And I've known many, many, many people in my support network that have had this happen. And I am telling you right now, as a psychologist, just like you can't shout bomb in an airport and say, like, oh, I was just joking, I was just letting it go. You cannot threaten suicide to your partner. Call the police. If they want to die, you got to call in help.
Yeah.
For me, you don't get to cry wolf. And I have done that for family when they've done that in front of me. Absolutely, we're calling the police. Well, I mean, I just, no, absolutely not. Like, no. This isn't a joke. Like, so, threatening suicide to emotionally manipulate someone into staying is beyond sick. It is beyond sick, and that is a red flag. If someone, when you argue with them, they threaten suicide, 100% leave that relationship. I don't need to know anything else.
Yeah.
This person needs help, and you can't give it to them. So, like, as a psychologist, if I was dating someone who did that, guess what? I'm calling 911. I'm going to get you help, and we're not hanging out anymore because I'm sorry. You have a lot of work to do, and you don't get to do that to other people. I'll, let's see how you are in therapy 6 months, a year from now. But no.
Yeah.
No. You need help, and I can't be that. So that is one of my biggest pet peeves as a psychologist, because it is pure emotional manipulation to allow them to continue harming you. Absolutely not. And then the next step 6, is the perpetrator has a change in thinking, choosing to move on, either through revenge or by homicide. This is where it gets really dangerous. This is where things, I mean, it's all dangerous, but this is the part where it gets really rough. Now he's decided to either leave you or kill you. And you will not know that this is coming. This is why domestic violence has such high correlations with domestic homicide.
Yeah.
And stalking has such high correlations with domestic homicide. And then the next part, step 7, is planning. The perpetrator might buy weapons or seek opportunities to get the victim alone. The research shows this time and time again. And for those of you wondering, no, these are not illegally bought weapons.
Yeah.
These are legally bought. And then finally, step 8, homicide. The perpetrator kills his or her partner and possibly hurts others, such as victims' children.
Mm-hmm.
There's unfortunately quite a few stories about mass murderers, and who do they start with? Their family.
Yeah. And a lot
It's
of times
just, you know,
at
that's
the end
part.
of it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The only instance where a stage in the model was not followed was when men did not meet stage 1, which means they didn't have a pre-relationship stalking or violence.
Interesting.
I mean, these are the warning signs. And they say, like, but this was normally because they had not previously had a relationship.
Yeah.
Which is its own stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of put out a lot of warning signs for people. Like, if you want to try and rationalize away steps 1 or 2, people, if you start seeing these steps coming in, it's coming.
Yeah.
And you know, these hundreds of cases, and this was just one study with hundreds of people. So it is very very intense, and it reminds me of the bear and the man
Mhm.
in the woods
Yeah.
debate, where so many men could not understand why women chose the bear, and then they looked at the stats of how many bears killed people versus how many men killed women, and it's like,
Yeah.
those 3 bear attacks were really intense compared to the hundreds of women murdered by men in 1 year.
So many. So many.
And also, men are more likely to be killed by other men,
Yeah.
just than a bear.
That's also true. There's a domestic violence story in Walking Dead as well. And
Yes.
I always remember there's a scene where the victim says to our beloved Rick, you know, like, oh, you know, if it gets worse. And he goes, if it gets worse, he's killed you. And I always think about that moment, because I'm like, the clarity that he has, that like, this is a pattern. I've seen this pattern. I know where it's going.
Mhm.
And you need to accept that this is what is happening. And everyone's sort of in denial. They're like, oh, we kind of thought maybe if, you know, we did this, it wouldn't be so bad. And it's like, no, this guy's gonna kill her. And the only thing that stops him from killing her is that he kills someone else first. And then, you know, he gets ganked. But
Yes.
that's Walking Dead. Everybody dies on Walking Dead.
Everybody does. Yeah, but it's true. It's I mean, the whole psychology behind it is when someone puts their hands on you, they've taken away your rights as a human and made you an object.
Yeah.
And once you've done it once, it's really easy to do it again. And that just, once you're an object to them, you don't have rights.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to your life. You are not entitled to safety or not being harmed. You are their punching bag that they can use to self-regulate, I guess, on the outside. But that's like what they taught us in grad school is the big warning sign about domestic violence and stalking, is you are no longer entitled to basic human rights.
Yeah.
Like they have decided that on this target of their behavior. That's why it usually leads to murder, because you're not a person to them anymore.
And when they're done with you, they're done with you.
Yes.
And nobody else gets to have you.
Yes. And one of the most toxic things is the domestic violence cycle, which is really difficult. They don't talk about it. They talk about it in episode 3 a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So let's
Not
talk about
episode 4.
Rachel and Lenny.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm more scared of me than I am of him right now.
You're at a crossroads. I know. It's either go for the easy fix and wait for the consequences, or take the hard road and go with faith.
Oh, God. You're not from that freaky church on Sunset, are you?
In yourself, that kind of faith. What I'm saying is if you leave Lenny for good, it'll hurt. But eventually you'll be stronger for it. And maybe you'll find your way to the kind of love you deserve.
You mean the kind that comes without 911 calls?
That's the general idea.
And when she said, like, you know how this starts most of the time is I call him, and I'm like, oh, I've done that. I have been like, hey, how you doing? And then I'm like, oh no, I'm back in chaos. Like it's dumb. And she needed to be sort of scared into not calling Lenny again, and we don't ever really, I don't think, find out what happens to Rachel. Like, does she stay away from Lenny forever? Like,
I think so, because at the end, Doyle says she said that she found a little faith.
yeah,
And
but
I think that he was telling her to have faith in the justice system,
or he said
and
faith in
that things
herself.
would.
Right. That
Yeah,
was such a great
and
scene
that.
where she's like, "Oh no, are you from that weird church?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably how I would have responded too. I would have been like, "Please don't bring God into this." But he's like, "Oh, I mean faith in yourself." And it's true that, like, one of the things that a abusive person does is chip away at your self-esteem so that you don't even think you deserve to be away from them anymore. Like, I
Yep.
don't deserve better than this. And I'm lucky I got out of that toxic relationship relatively quickly, considering.
Yeah.
But I have definitely seen people go through it for a lot longer and keep
It's
going
so
back to
hard.
someone who treats them badly because at
Mhm.
some level they're like, I deserve to be treated like this. Or I
Mm.
don't deserve better. It's two
No
sides of the
one
same coin.
deserves that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. No one deserves that. And there are some people in this world that I genuinely cannot stand. They make my skin crawl. I wouldn't wish domestic violence on them. Like, it's such, like, gosh, it's just such a mind toenail.
Yeah.
Like, it's because part of it. So, if just there's so many, you can just Google the cycle of violence, but one of the things that comes up is the explosion. We all know what that is: violence, emotional abuse, all that stuff. Then there's the remorse phase, the justification, the minimizing, the guilt. That's how they worm their way in. Then there's the pursuit phase, the pursuit and the promises that they'll make to you. I'll never do it again. I'm just having a really hard time, but it'll get
I'll
better.
get
Then it's
therapy,
the
I
honeymoon.
promise. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to therapy. I'll promise it's never gonna happen again. The honeymoon phase. Oh, they're taking you out to dinner. They're buying you things. They're all sweet and cuddly and doing things for you. This is what drives me nuts as a clinician, because I know that that's pulling you back in. And then there's an increase in tension.
And then you're
It
just
builds
right
up,
back into
an
it.
increase. And then the standover phase, control and fear, and then the explosion. And it just goes and goes and goes. No one is the exception. And that's the part of it. And as a clinician, like, I'm pretty strict if I'm working with someone who, we're going to get law enforcement involved. I mean, it is not just leave this person. It is very much involved, because I know how dangerous it is, or can be. My rules in therapy, and I own, like, I can transfer you to another therapist. It's totally okay. My rules in therapy are: you don't get contact with your ex once you leave. And I was actually taught that when my practicum that I was training at was connected to a domestic abuse shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And they said like, these men and women cannot have contact with their abusive ex, because now they're away from the violence, and the ex is going to honeymoon stage them over and over
Yeah.
and
Love
over and
bomb.
over, and it's brainwashing. So I take that on, and I own that that's a my thing in therapy, of like, I'm gonna have a hard time working with your brainwashing if you're actively involved with this person. So I just, I think everyone should have a therapist. Go talk to your
Yeah.
therapist. I love mine. So, like, they're good people to bounce this stuff off of, and they're neutral parties, and they'll be able to bring in other ways and other things to think about. And it's just such a tough thing. But yeah, her character really reminded me of the cycle of domestic violence, of, yeah, girl, you can't go back. It's not going to get better.
Right.
I will say, when he hit her in the beginning, I gasped.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the episode, but I still, like, I just, for all the demon fights we have, something about two humans and domestic violence really, like, gut punched me,
Yeah.
so to speak.
So
But yeah, it was pretty brutal.
I was sort of annoyed when I was watching episode 4. I was like, this is 4 episodes in a row of this brand new show with a damsel in distress, right? Like, Angel just keeps
Yeah.
rescuing these women from these
thought that
dangerous
too.
men. And I was like, is this exploitative? Is this turning violence against women into entertainment? Or is it shining a light on a very real problem in society.
Mhm.
I think maybe it's both. And then I started thinking about it in terms of like Angel when he was Angelus
Mm.
delighted in stalking and terrorizing women specifically.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
maybe the powers that be in
I
universe
like that idea.
are specifically sending him to rescue the kinds of women that he terrorized in the past. That his redemption
Oh,
path is customized to him and some of
I
the horrible
like
things that
that.
he did before. This made me feel better about the fact that it's been 4 damsels in distress in a row. I was like, all
That
right,
is
it's
true.
sort of thematic with Angelus.
I like
I will
that.
say that the victims, the people that Angel helps do get more diverse as the show goes on. Although
Yes, yes.
this sort of like the worst danger to women is men is a theme that will keep coming
Yeah.
up and coming up.
Yeah, and I had a very similar reaction, but of like, oh, again. I like your take on that. I think that is my favorite take. For me, like watching episode 4, I was like, it is kind of accurate though.
Yeah.
Like women are mainly the targets of men, and they are just societally easier targets.
Yeah.
Like, sexual assault is the only crime where we ask whether the victim brought it on.
Or like
So it's
how
like,
hard did they actually fight back? Like
yeah, what were you wearing? What were you doing walking down the street? What do you mean? Why didn't you lock the doors? Like, we don't ask that about like
robbery. Yeah.
burglaries or like homicides. Like, so I do think, there's there's a point of like, yeah, I can see women being the main target for monsters. They are for humans. And it has nothing to do with physiology. It's because it is women are socialized that way and society views them that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
We are more
I'm
vulnerable because we're less believed.
Mhm.
Like a lot of women are on average physically less strong than men. But
Yes.
we're also like hamstrung. Like just look at women's fashion and how hard it is to
Mm,
run in like a women's business
yeah.
suit or high heels. Like
Mhm.
all
Yeah,
like
that's a good point.
corsets, like all of these things that have been part of like women's
Yeah.
expected behavior in society are designed to make women easier targets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Limited mobility, like physical, financial, emotional, like limit, trap,
Yep.
coerce, keep them in a marriage, keep
Absolutely.
them, like treat
Mhm.
them, tell them they have to be subservient, like all these things. Like it's not even that long
Well,
ago that like marital rape wasn't even a crime. It was like that can't
yep.
possibly be a crime.
It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1970s. Yeah, no, it's wild. Women and girls were just added to the Constitution
Like last
in
week.
now. Yeah. I think a lot of people with sexism and racism and ethnocentrism and homophobia, I think people forget that like it hasn't been that long since laws were put into place, and that's a whole nother story, but like this stuff has been real for a while, and societal change actually takes quite a lot. And yeah, there is this thing I've noticed where if it's not your lived experience, it's harder to understand.
Yeah.
And it just I would just encourage people to have more empathy and really just talk to people.
Yeah.
I feel like sharing with individuals, like, hey, this is what I go through. I mean, one of the most powerful things in my grad school class was this gender studies class, but our male professor was like, how many ways are he's like, I just want to talk to the men. He's like, I'm gonna be binary here, but I just want to talk to the men in the class, like all 4 of you. But like, how many ways are you guys protecting yourself on the way to the subway or the bus today? And they just kind of stared at him blankly.
Like what?
It's like, I mean, I'm sure like guys can get jumped too. Like I'm sure they're mindful. And he goes, okay, women. I think there wasn't that many more of us, but they said, women, how many ways are you protecting yourself?
Oh, there's so many.
He's in the. We had over a dozen, and he's like, this is a reality we can never understand. So you need to understand that when you meet with patients. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you
Take
men,
their word
like
for
this
it.
is
When women
Yeah.
say like walking at night to just like get to the subway or to get, you know, parking your car and then having to walk into a building
Yeah.
when the parking lot is dark is terrifying. And will you just
It
believe us
is.
when we tell you that it's terrifying and don't argue with
And
us about
help us. Help us. Like, you know, it's something I think I've been pretty verbal about on my social media. I'm horrified that there was a group of worldwide members,
Oh, the text thing. Oh my God.
700,000 men from around the world had a social media group where they were sharing and exchanging guidance on how to sexually assault their wives, girlfriends, mothers, and
Daughters,
daughters.
neighbors. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
70,000, I think, but it's still
was it 70,000?
absolutely
I remember they
horrible.
were like, it's multiple football
Yeah,
stadiums or
it was
something.
so
You know, it's like,
many,
dear God.
so many.
Yeah.
And that's just the one we know about.
That they caught, yes, that they caught, and it's been around for years. 70,000 is still
It's
way
so
too
many
many.
men.
But thank you.
It's so many men.
I've had one guy friend post about it. I've had a bunch of women
Yeah.
talking about it and posting about it. I don't understand why sexual assault, rape, and stalking, molestation, harassment continues to only be a women's subject.
Yeah.
Y'all, you guys need to step up. If you're the good guys, please, I'm begging you.
Like, talk about
You
it.
guys have to, yeah.
Talk about it with
Talk
the
about it.
men in your life. Don't talk to me about it. I'm all informed. Talk
Yes, no. Yeah,
to the men you
post
know.
on your social media.
Yeah.
Post about this
Say it
stuff.
publicly.
If you are one of the good guys and you're like, well, I don't have any friends that do locker room talk, great. Then there should be no problem with you posting about the wonderful Gisele Pelicot from
my
France
God.
who stood up and was so
Legend.
brave. Yeah. Another thing I have seen no men post about.
Yeah, they don't want to
If
talk
you're
about
a
it. It
good
makes
guy,
them uncomfortable.
post about it.
So
Yeah.
this brings up a moment in the episode. Cordy is talking to Doyle and she's like, why even bother dating, right? You meet a doctor and he turns out to be a stalker, like whatever. And then she's like,
my soul.
yeah, she's like, if you like them, they don't like you back. And if you don't like them, that's the guy that will hover around you and never leave. And Doyle gets all uncomfortable and sort of like backs away from Cordelia, obviously being like, oh no, am I that guy that's hovering around and won't leave her alone? And this, I think, is the thing that stops good guys from being more active allies, is that they can recognize themselves in some of the bad behavior that women talk about. And they're so horrified by it or embarrassed by it or worried that someone's going to call them out on it that they just want to avoid the entire subject. It makes them so uncomfortable.
That's a great point.
And it's like,
yeah.
Get over yourself. All of us have made mistakes in our past. All you can do is when you know better, do better. So you know better. Yeah. So now I want you to talk about it with other guys and own it.
Yeah.
I think about, who is the comedian who used to be friends with Russell Brand and he's going around being like, he was
Daniel
my friend
Sloss.
and he did it.
Daniel Sloss.
Yeah, Daniel Sloss. Yeah. That's what you need to be doing,
He's-
everyone.
And that is sexy. I gotta tell you, being for women's rights and like believing in women's
so
rights and being respectful,
vocal about it.
That is sexy.
Yeah.
Like that is how you. This is how you do it. And I gotta say, like you nailed it, Penny. Because I remember, I'll never forget. I had this conversation with one of my friends. Like we're friends for like 15 years now. And there was an article. This was a conversation that happened like 10 years ago. But there was an article that came out that said, asked women, what would you do if all men had a curfew at 5 p.m.?
God.
What would you do?
Like actually go outside at night? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go for a night run. I'd drive with the windows down. Like I'd put both headphones on, and like I remember it was like just like a house party. I mean, like our house parties were just food and beverages, sometimes alcohol, and we'd all just hang out. And I'll never forget Kevin being like near tears. Like he was like, I never knew.
Yeah.
Like I never knew how much. Like I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it because I started crying when he told me, and I had no alcohol yet. But it was just a real conversation, and he's like one of the sweetest men on the planet. And like very, like, I mean, I would trust him in the woods, like, and with my baby and stuff like that. Like, he is a very, very sweet, good man. But he's like, I never thought that this is your reality. I remember crying because it was just such a wonderful conversation. And I still remember it 15 years later of like, yeah, like this, just talk. And if you mess up, just own it and apologize. I do it when I make mistakes and I'm in my white privilege,
Oh my God.
my cisgendered privilege. Like, I make mistakes and I apologize all the time. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It's like
You're
a
right.
daily
I need to work
occurrence
on
that I remember something that I said to someone 20 years ago that is clearly a microaggression. And I'm like, I cannot believe I said that. That is so embarrassing. But I
Aw.
did. And it doesn't mean I shouldn't in the future avoid doing that. Like, now I know better. So I'm going to be better.
So like that's all you can do, and not talking about it. I'm sorry, that's the coward's way out.
Avoiding the subject,
It is a coward's way out.
pretending it's just a women's issue. It is everyone's issue.
Say something, even if you think you're making a mistake, and then take the feedback if it's a mistake so you can do better. This is what they teach us in our anti-racism work. You don't get to not say anything.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't
that's
opt out of society unless, I
Yeah.
guess you can like live off the grid and be a hermit and never talk to another person. But if you want to exist,
Don't date women or talk to them in your family.
if you want to exist in a society, then you need to own and participate in improving it. Or you're part of the problem.
Exactly. And it's because if the men are like, and they're good guys too, like Doyle, and they're just sort of pulling back from it, it's like, then you're falling on your privilege that you don't actually have to have this conversation. Good for you. I don't get that option. And neither does Cordy. And so, like, I mean, I just kind of want to somehow give the knowledge I have working with sexual assault survivors and having to have a conversation with them, and just pass that on to like the men like in the world of like, yeah, you ever look in the face of a sexual assault survivor, male and female, but mostly women, and say like, you definitely need a kit so that we can get the DNA on file. Hopefully it'll be processed. You need the exam to make sure that you're safe, and if you have any injuries, we need to talk about whether or not you want to move forward with pressing charges.
Yeah.
Because if you go forward, you're going to be on the stand, not him or her.
There's an amazing,
which is a nightmare to have to get that conversation.
Yeah.
It's just transparency.
Yeah.
But
there's this amazing miniseries on Netflix called Unbelievable. And it's about rape investigations and the way that the police deal with it, and some of the realities of being a victim and being mistreated by the system. It's not an easy watch. It's not a comfortable watch.
No.
It is excellently performed, beautifully written. The cast is amazing. Merritt Wever, Toni Collette, Caitlin Dever, and what's her name, who was in Dumplin', and I can't remember, Danielle something, the other actor who is one of the main characters. It is such an important show, and I have been telling people to watch it since it came out several years ago. It's so good.
I think every man needs to watch it.
Yeah.
And I do have a very nice colleague that I am good friends with, and he doesn't like to watch anything with violence against women. And he's like, I just don't like it. And I said, that's not really up to you, though, is it?
Also,
like,
that particular movie doesn't show violence against women like he's thinking of it. Yeah. It's the justice system that commits the violence.
Exactly. So it's, but it's one of those things where it's like, you don't get to look away.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like, because women are the ones watching it, and we're not the target audience.
Like, we're not the ones who need the education for the most part.
Exactly.
I mean, it helps
like,
to know, but for me, the big realization for me came in law school when I read Susan Faludi's book, Real Rape. And what that book is about is the difference between the way that we perceive what rape is. Like, people, what you think it might be, and what the
people
court
think it's sexual attraction,
thinks it is,
but
and
it's
what
not.
it is
It's
to
control.
prove rape in court, and how it's defined, and how different that is from what you might think counts as rape. And it was an eye-opening and disturbing read, but I
Oh, I
recommend
bet.
it to people all the time because I'm like, it's not what you think it is. Like and that book is
No,
out of
no.
date, but it's still really, really good. This is another time I
Yeah,
wish
and
that
very.
Kara was here. She has a
I
lot of
know, 'cause
experience with these kinds of
Kara
cases.
does a lot of great work. Yeah, I've only done like the advocacy piece and being there with them, and I have met some truly wonderful police officers when I did that work, and I have met such monsters at that where like I thought I was gonna get arrested
Yeah.
because I was getting salty. I mean, like I like, but it's just something that is constantly prevalent, and I know like these great guys out there. Obviously the ones listening to this podcast are, and it's like this is how you show up.
Yeah.
Make a mistake, man. It's
Own
cool.
it,
Like
move
post
on,
about it.
improve your life.
Yeah. Like the silence isn't the answer, and I gotta tell you, when I see the women's marches and the men are there with their signs, that's kind of awesome and sexy and cool.
Yeah, we like those guys.
Like,
and
it's just
if you have kids, don't just talk to your daughter about protecting herself from men. Talk to your sons about not being
rape.
perpetrators and being allies and looking out for bad behavior and calling out other men.
Yes.
Because it starts when they're in middle school, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, if you think your
It's
kid
just
is too young to even know what rape is, they're not. They already know.
No. There is a book that I give to many of my friends with their little toddlers. It's called I have to look it up, but I order it for them all the time. It's on my Amazon thing. But it talks about touch and bodily autonomy for like 3 and 4 year olds
at a nice level that they can understand. Yeah, let's put that in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. I'll look it up. And I gotta say, like my friends are my friends, so they expect my DEI books. But like I have one pair of friends who live in Northern California, and I gave it to them for their son when he was 2.5. And they said it's still his favorite book, like 4 years later.
Like, can we read the touching book?
Yeah, like I mean, they love it because it's teaching kids, like, like don't let people touch you, like, because we want to protect children from that too, and starting at a young age. He loves it. On episode 4, not shocking that a surgeon thinks he's God and decides to change medicine. I was like, that fits. Shout out, love all my surgeons, but I've worked with you. You guys are tough in the personality department.
Yeah, it's a career that attracts people with a certain God complex, and you kind of have to be a little insane to be like, I could cut someone open and fix some stuff. Like, that's crazy.
You have to have a little bit of sociopathic traits in you, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's necessary to work in a hospital. You need to have it because you need to be able to
distance
hurt
yourself
people
too
for a good thing. Yeah. To be able to cut someone open, you have to dehumanize them a little bit in order to help them.
Exactly. It's
otherwise your surgeon's breaking down in tears as they're trying to do the appendectomy. Like that's no one's benefiting.
Exactly.
But that's what they do day in and day out. So like that's it builds that in there. I did like from episode 3 that Doyle said Frankie the tripod.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. It got me.
All of Doyle's social connections sound like bookies to me. They all sound like side characters from mafia movies.
Like out of Jersey Shores.
Yeah.
It's just she's like, why are they calling the tripod?
And then she's like, ew. Yeah.
Like, I'm with you. The more Cordy's on this show too, I'm like, I relate to her as like my soul sister.
You both have a refreshing directness, which I really do enjoy. I thought her and Doyle's conversation about his crappy apartment versus her crappy apartment was so funny.
It was.
And she's like, mine isn't this gross. This smells like bong water. And I was like, I've been in apartments like that.
I have said that.
Like, this is nasty.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's not that bad. It's just, oh, God, it was so funny.
Yes, I do have different variables of like what actually bothers me, so I don't think I would be as blunt all the time like Cordy is. Like,
I mean,
genuinely doesn't bother me.
She's a little exaggerated.
Yeah, like, I'm like, it didn't really bother me. It's like, whatever. Yeah, if I went to a guy's apartment and it smelled like bong water, I would absolutely tell them. I have told guys that I've dated that I don't appreciate their lack of decor, their one bath towel.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been verbal of like, okay, bachelor,
Yeah.
someone needs a home ec class, huh?
It's a recurring theme on one of my favorite shows, which is Queer Eye, where they go to like the person's apartment and they're like, "You don't bring girls here, do you?" Well, they say women. They're like, "You're not bringing a woman."
Advocating for women
Yeah, they're
everywhere,
like-
even if they're not sleeping with
Yeah,
them.
they're like, "No woman wants to come feel sexy in this room." Like they're always like,
Facts.
they're like,
Facts.
"No one wants to take off their clothes in this room. It's gross."
Yep.
And the guy's always
Facts.
like, and I'm like, yeah, they're 100% right. It's gross in there. I would not get naked in that room.
They are.
Yeah.
I did like that sort of reminds me of, there was a funny video, and for the life of me I can't remember his name, but he was saying he was a gay man who was saying, he's like, you guys don't want to do away with gay marriage because guess what?
We'll marry your women.
We're gonna marry your women.
Yeah.
And we actually get along with them really well. And I was like, oh my god, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. I've had a lot of gay
makes
guy
me-
friends that I would happily cohabitate with.
Seriously, same. Let's get some, benefits of, being married and stuff like that.
Cuddle, but no sex? Like, that's great.
Exactly. And they have emotional intelligence and stuff. So
They could probably help me put on my makeup
amazing.
better.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah. My clothes and everything. But yeah, and just emotional intelligence, funny,
Hygiene.
clever, brilliant, good hygiene. So yeah, it's amazing how much the emotional intelligence goes up when they're not interested in having sex with women.
Yeah, it completely changes the way they relate to you.
Yeah, there's capabilities in there. But that was all I sort of had for the episode. So how about you, Penny?
I had a couple of little things. One is that the mystique of like dating and marrying a doctor in pop culture is so outdated.
Oh my god.
Like now all I think about when I think about dating a doctor is how they're like never available. They work crazy hours. Their lives are so hard. Like maybe if they're like a partner in a private practice, they're a great catch, but like any doctor that's in the early part of their career, they don't have time for you. It's not worth dating them.
No,
I've dated doctors and it was like, I could see you in 3 weeks. Like it it's
yes, I agree. I would only ever date a woman doctor, I guess.
It's a nightmare.
I've dated male doctors and it was our personalities just don't mesh.
There were a whole bunch of jokes in episode 4 about the coffee being bad. I don't know where they're going with that. I was like, why are we talking about the coffee so much? Apparently Angel drinks coffee even though he's a vampire.
Yeah. I did find it funny that even vampires fall susceptible to the caffeine curse.
Yeah.
And like Cordy's like, we can't talk to him until he's had his coffee. I'm like,
it's so not hard to make a decent cup of coffee. And like, I understand they're strapped for cash, but coffee filters are super cheap. Like,
I know. She said it was last week's coffee, so maybe that was why.
Yeah, but like, come on, people, because later in the episode, she's like making another pot of coffee with a dirty filter. I'm like, this is unacceptable.
I know. They should have done what you did at the lake house and like put it and make it iced coffee.
Yeah, that's what you do with old coffee. You put it in the fridge, and then later you have iced coffee.
Yeah, and maybe like Angel can mix it in with his blood. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
caffeinated.
I think be like
there might be at some point that Spike is like, I like to put coffee in the blood or so. Oh no, he likes to put crackers in his blood.
And Spike likes human food, which I always found very funny and very
famously
oddly
a fan
relatable.
of the blooming onion.
Yes.
When Angel decapitates the doctor, Melissa is so relieved that she hugs Angel. To me, that didn't feel right. I was like, I don't think she wants to hug any man, even the one who just saved her.
100%. I don't see that happening. As refreshing as it must have been to have a man be involved with women-related crimes, like, hey, men are paying attention. I don't think a hug's happening. Working with survivors of violence, they don't want anyone touching you. Like, that's just you're too hyped up, you're too scared. Your fight and flight is actually you're a little dangerous, to be honest. You usually give people more space, not less, because their fight or flight needs to calm down.
Exactly.
But Yeah, no, I'm with you. That seemed very
Yeah.
cheesy and very much written by a man. Sorry, guys. Because like any woman's like, I'm gonna hug a stranger.
Yeah. It's time for pop culture references.
So in episode 103, Oz says, "Yeah, your buddy Spike dug up Sunnydale looking for it, but he got a fistful of Buffy and left it behind." That's my impression of Oz. It's terrible. Sorry, Seth Green. This could be a reference to the Western A Fistful of Dollars. Nice. I can see him quoting
Yeah.
that. Cordelia says to Doyle, "I think the trick is laying off the ale before you start quoting Angela's Ashes and weeping like a baby man." Angela's Ashes is Frank McCourt's autobiography about his childhood in Limerick, Ireland, and really sad. Spike says of Angel, "Quick to the Angel Mobile." Oh, whoops. Spike says to Angel, "Quickly to the Angel Mobile, away." Another Batman reference. I caught that. Cordelia says, "It's daylight. You're ringless, and unless you plan on changing the act to Human Torch, I don't think so." A reference to the Fantastic Four. Whilst talking about Angela's Ashes with Doyle in the Dark, Cordelia says, "I doubt very much that the main characters are Betty and Barney Rubble, as you so vehemently insisted last night. Also, I don't think Oz appreciated being called my little Bam Bam all night." I do wish we had that scene. You're right. Betty and Barney Rubble are characters from the cartoon The Flintstones, and Bam Bam is their child. Oh, that must have been amazing. Cordelia references the fashion designer Versace in the Dark when she says, "Since when did you get all Versace about accessorizing?"
Cordelia says to Doyle that the only way she'll go on a cruise with him is in an alternate universe where he turns into the actor Matthew McConaughey. All right. Yeah.
All right.
I used to not get the Matthew McConaughey thing, but in recent years, I've sort of come around on him.
Yeah. He's another squishy one. Yeah. Cuddles.
Spike calls Angel a white hat, a reference to classic westerns in which the heroes would often wear white hats while the villains usually wore black hats. The term is also used in the episode The Wish, which is Buffy season 3, when a vampire hunter group is known as the White Hats.
That term also went on to be used in the show Scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Very famously.
God, I haven't thought about Scandal in a long time. Confronting Spike as he wrecks Angel's apartment in search of the Gem of Amara, Cordelia refers to a 1994 incident in which the actor Johnny Depp was arrested in connection with some serious damage to an NYC hotel suite. While torturing Angel, Marcus quotes the play Hamlet by Shakespeare, in case you didn't know that. A 1600 play.
The year 1600.
Yeah. Act 2, Scene 2. There is nothing either good, bad or good, but thinking makes it so. Spike at one point says, "Lucy, I'm home," which is a reference to the sitcom I Love Lucy, which ran from 1951 to 1957. Oz's van has a sticker of the band Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Nick Cave is just extremely, extremely avant-garde and cool, so of course that's who Oz is into. A theater marquee in the background displays the 1999 film titles Deep Blue Sea and The Sixth Sense.
I really love the Deep Blue Sea. Also, more and more, I feel like Spike would just be a great addition to our friend group. I'm like, he likes junk food. He watches all the cool stuff. He's funny.
Yeah,
we just have to work on him not killing us.
Yeah, the violence is the problem.
Yeah. The no soul thing is a little tricky. In episode 104, Doyle says, "And people who need people are the luckiest." Oh, these lyrics are from the song People, written by Bob Merrill and Jewel Stein, which was sung by Barbara Streisand in Funny Girl. Ever seen it?
Yeah, classic.
Cordelia says, I don't get it. This guy has a lot to lose. What is it about Melissa that's got him going all OJ here? Oh, I missed that. In the same episode, Kate says, through the law. I did like this quote. This one I got. In the same episode, Kate says, they're the law firm that Johnny Cochran is too ethical to join. Johnny Cochran was a lawyer who defended O.J. Simpson. Patsy Cline's I Fall to Pieces. A season 1 episode of Angel was titled I Fall to Pieces after her song. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
On to trivia. And in episode 103, despite editing 5 minutes out of the episode, when it was aired in the UK, it angered the ITC due to the violence and adult themes. The network quickly moved it to a later time slot than its usual 6 p.m., which does seem really early for a show this dark.
That does.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever watched it that I could have sworn it was on like it might have been time zone things, like it might have been like a different country.
Yeah, it was in the UK.
And they still aired it that
I know,
early
that's crazy.
there? I don't blame the UK. That's weird.
Spike's first appearance in the script for In the Dark is described in the stage directions as, now we see who this narrator is. It's Spike, perched high overhead on a rooftop ledge, looking down on the alley like some living gargoyle, having the time of his life.
Accurate. He did a good job.
Spike referring to Angel as a big fluffy puppy with bad teeth is similar to Buffy's comment in The Harsh Light of Day, where she tells Parker that the bite Angel gave her was given to her by an angry puppy. Interestingly, Vampire Willow also refers to Angel as puppy in The Wish.
Yeah.
Cordelia tries to give Doyle some idea of what they're up against with Spike, and her catalog of evilness includes the whole deal with the arm in a box. This is a reference to Spike and Drusilla releasing the demon judge during the events in Surprise and Innocence, Buffy Season 2. Angel practicing Tai Chi with the accompanying score is poignantly evocative. Somebody put some opinion into this trivia. Is poignantly evocative of his long, painful rehabilitation after being returned to Sunnydale in Faith, Hope, and Trick, 1998, Buffy Season 3. Bringing him pig's blood in Band Candy, one of my all-time favorite episodes, Buffy for the first time sees Angel still in significant pain, but clearly on the mend, practicing the forms with utter concentration. In Revelations, later that season, they have regular training sessions together during which they are both keenly aware that Angel's physical health has vastly improved. In this episode...
Ooh, which part?
Yeah. In this episode, Angel is clearly trying to work through his anguish at losing the Slayer, made freshly acute by the arrival of Oz. There's so much opinion in the way this is written. I love it. The expectation that Angel's kata is being interrupted by a phone call from Buffy is reinforced by the initial silence on the line, reminiscent of the silent call he made to her near the end of the episode City of, which she answered unaware in The Freshman.
There we go. In episode 104, there are scenes where the evil doctor... Yes. The evil doctor is prowling around an apartment complex. This location is actually the historic Los Altos apartments of Los Angeles, and later becomes the exterior model for Angel's Hyperion Hotel, where Angel takes up residence in the future.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah, a little tiny spoiler, but yeah.
Andy Umberger, who plays the doctor in this episode, also guest starred as De Hoffren. That's the name I remember. Yeah. That's the name I get right. I speak demon very well. On Buffy the Vampire Slayer in 1997. He also guest starred in the Joss Whedon series Firefly. This is not the first time that Cordelia finds herself locked in a basement while her companion duct tapes around the door to prevent pieces of the bad guy from crawling underneath. In season 2 of Buffy, What's My Line, part 1 from 1997, Cordy and Xander barricaded themselves in the Summers basement to escape, an assassin demon able to take human form, but who is actually composed entirely of thousands upon thousands of mealworms. The two later kill the assassin by trapping the mealworm form in glue and stomping on him. I completely forgot that.
so
I must have
gross.
blocked
It is
that
so
out.
gross.
Dialogue between Cordelia and Doyle suggests that part of, at least, this episode takes place a month after City of. More specifically, Cordy mentions that she has been working for Angel for a month. That makes sense. A stage direction for I Fall to Pieces read, back to Doyle. He's in pain, but not a writhing, drooling kind of pain. God bless the actors and actresses. I couldn't do it.
I would be laughing all the
They're
time.
amazing, talented people.
Amazing. So
Oh my goodness.
now it's time.
Yoo-hoo.
Does it still slay?
Unfortunately for me, it does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think we're going back to the Dark Ages a little bit. And yeah, in 2025, stalking, torture, violence, children being attacked, women being attacked, systems failing us. We need a hero. Yeah, uncomfortably still slaying.
Super relevant. And
Yeah, but you.
I think episode 3 is the superior episode of the two. Episode 4,
Oh, yeah,
like we said earlier,
definitely.
is sort of weak, but the themes are incredibly relevant. And the doctor who can dismember his own parts is creepy and unique. And
Yeah.
I haven't seen that on any other show.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's a good point of like, it's really like someone watched The Addams Family and was like, we need to make the Thing a whole body.
And evil.
That can
evil.
Yeah. And evil, because Thing is actually very nice. Yeah, totally agree.
So we don't usually have a news section because the show's 25 years old, but the world is the world right now, and things being what they are, Sam and I wanted to just talk a little bit about how we're doing and what's going on in the world. And also just, I want to say that while this isn't a politics podcast, it's not like Pod Save America or something like that, where they talk all about politics. We are going to share our truths, and we're not going to pretend that we don't have political opinions. And sometimes these shows, often these shows, bring up themes and stories that really read on current events. And this is a really good example because Trump just rolled back protections for women in the workplace, setting civil rights for women back decades. And
So
everything
much.
that he has promised and everything that Project 2025 tells us is that we cannot expect his administration to protect women or anyone really, except for billionaires in any way. And I'm sad. I'm
Yeah.
really, really sad about it.
Yeah, I'm like getting teary-eyed as you're describing it, Penny. Yeah, like I'm gonna try not to cry. It's been a week. I'm a psychologist, and I sit with people's pain all week, and it has been really hard to to just sit with people's fear and just know that they're true. I mean, I think if people aren't afraid or scared right now, I think that's a privilege, and hold on to it, because a lot of people are, and there's ICE raids that are happening, and I'm worried about family and friends. We just had ICE raids in Boston, Chicago, LA, New York City, and the fact that kids are afraid in school. And one of my friends, their school sent home a letter to the parents saying that we're going to protect them. I work with people with disabilities. I work in a hospital. They're scared. They're sad. I work with people of color. they're scared, they're sad. It's not politics for me, it's human rights. And, people who just don't want to talk about it and don't want to sit with it, boy, are you lucky. And I'm not talking about the people taking breaks. Please take breaks when you need to. And I'm grateful that Penny was like, yeah, let's just name what's the elephant sitting on everyone's chest this week. Because it'd be disingenuous to just ignore what's happening to so many people, especially on a podcast about a show of women's rights and LGBTQ plus rights and equality and just everything,
Injustice.
anti-racism. Yeah, like just it's, I like to think Buffy and Angel would be first in line to lead the resistance, and there's time to be in the resistance, and we're not giving up. I think the pain that I sit with is a lot of moral injury of this is happening in our country, and we're allowing it. We don't like it, and everything, and how it's happening is really bad, and we're just starting to see it. And just the humans that I'm facing, like everyone who is like, "Nah, I don't care about this," or "It doesn't bother me." I just want to be like, "Hey, if I have my patients sign a release, can you come and sit in our sessions? Because I'm crying every day this week."
Yeah.
Because good people, are in pain and scared, and they aren't overreacting as much as people might wish they were. People in California are suffering like catastrophically. And we have a friend, Karen, who's there, and I said, like, I mean, you're managing a natural disaster right now, and she rightfully so was like, it's not a natural disaster, this is man-made. And she's right. And this is done on purpose with climate change, and everything about it. The CDC, all the federal agencies aren't allowed to talk to people right now, at least for the next 90 days. There's an avian flu on its way over here. We need to be keeping the public up to date on what's going on in health. We can't do that right now. And just the sheer amount of things trickling down. All these safeties are being taken away, and people are scared, and their fear is valid, and there is no protection. So I'm like devastated, just sitting with all the pain, and it's really difficult to know that so many people are scared and afraid, and there's nothing we can do systemically. I am determined to fight. I mean,
Yeah.
I've checked in on my friends who are transgendered, and I can't imagine what it's like for them and everything that's going on. And I had asked them, like, are you going to go to a protest? Are you going to get involved? And how can I do it? And they said, yeah, I'm going to a protest and getting involved. I don't have another choice.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of stuck with me. So yeah, I'm glad that we have the space, and obviously it's not gonna be like every episode. But it's just I'm in pain. I know, like, Penny's in pain, and you're not alone. And we can post some resources for people. Don't let the bad guys win.
Yeah.
Like there's resources for everyone, and we'll post those in the show notes. You're not alone, and we will be here, and we will continue to be here giving you your Slayer encouragement.
Yeah.
And we're not going anywhere.
And
we hope you stay here too, because you're important too.
And while we're not gonna pretend that these things aren't happening, we're also going to make a very concerted effort to remember that in an oppressive system, joy is an act of resistance. And we are going to enjoy these shows that we love, and we're going to enjoy hearing from our listeners, and we're going to enjoy getting on our computers and talking to each other about the show. And I am not going to let anyone take that away from me. And if you want to talk about this stuff, but you don't want us to read it on the podcast, like, just write to us at the Still Slaying feedback, whatever, it's in the show notes, and start a conversation. We'll talk to you. If you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, if you live somewhere where everyone around you is, happy with what this administration is doing, and you need to talk to someone, like, reach out.
Please, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna put resources in. Please talk to us. It feels so heavy because it is, and it's okay. It's okay to take breaks. It's necessary to take breaks, and make sure you celebrate the joy. If you have any questions, especially if you're in an area that doesn't support you and you're scared, email us, and we'll do some research to find you some resources.
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
Yeah. Community is what's going to get us through this.
Just like in
And
the domestic violence situation that we are talking about all this episode, isolation is a tool of the oppressor. So
absolutely
form community, find like-minded people, bond together with them, hang on to the people you love. Don't let them take that away from you.
No, yeah, celebrate things. That's what we're fighting for, is to be able to have joy and celebrate. And please don't let my tearful recollection stop you from talking to your therapist about it. Please do talk to your therapist about it. Please don't avoid it. If anything, we're going through it with you. And as painful as it is to hear it as a clinician, it is reinforcing to know that I'm telling someone that they're not alone in their pain. So, like Penny was saying, community, share, reach out. Now is a great time to get a therapist if you haven't gotten one before. And in the spirit of our delightful podcast that Penny and Kara started and is so beautiful, I looked up some quotes from Buffy to inspire us.
Awesome.
Buffy says, "Power. I have it, they don't. This bothers them." That is true on so many levels, guys. The government is taking away human rights systemically. They do need us to complete it. We are the ones with the power.
They wouldn't be trying to silence us so vigorously if our voices didn't matter.
Yep. Absolutely. And then Buffy says, "We'll go be heroes. Let's go and be heroes. Celebrate the joy." And then Angel says, from season 2, "No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left? Me." Remember Buffy. Giles, you have a plan? Buffy, I am the plan. Buffy says, "I always find a way. I'm the thing that monsters have nightmares about." That's true. Strong is fighting. This is Buffy. Strong is fighting. It's hard and it's painful and it's every day. And it's what we have to do. And we can do it together. Some of this resonating with anyone? Buffy, I make it through this. And the next thing, and the next thing. And maybe one day I turn around and realize I'm ready. There you go. Buffy, I'm beyond tired. I'm beyond scared. I'm standing on the mouth of hell and it's going to swallow me whole. And it'll choke on me. We're not ready. They're not ready.
I recognize that one. That's season 7.
Yeah, right? I do too. And this is from Anya. When it's really something that matters, they fight. I mean, they're lame morons for fighting. But they do. They keep on fighting and they never quit. And so I guess I will keep fighting too. Well, this one's a little bit of a spoiler, so we won't do that one. Buffy, make your choices. Are you ready to be strong? So that's our Buffy giving us very still slaying quotes for 2025. Our leader.
Speaking of community and connecting to people, let's go over to the bronze and hear from some of our listeners.
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
This first one is from Karen about episode 103, who humorously says, "I'm probably too late, but Spike's narration in the beginning is the best part of this episode. I was dying." And yeah, it was hilarious.
So true. So true. So true. I think he would be our friend if we could just work on the pesky
violence and murder
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with people who might murder us every day, and they have souls apparently. we can work with you, Spike. Becky. Hey, Becky. Hey, I swear I tried to keep this short. It's okay, Becky. It's
we
us.
love you anyway.
Yes,
Or
it's us. You
because
fit
of
right
it,
in.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. You're one of us. Okay. Becky says, love this opening. Spike narrating the convo between Rachel and Angel was hilarious. No, not the hair. Never the hair. Angel is a mysterious black-clad hunk of a night thing, though. The opening song is one of my all-time favorite TV intro songs of all time. Agreed. Yeah. I forgot how much I like Doyle. He and Cordelia are so funny together. Her telling Oz Doyle air quotes works here. that was a good one. The conversation between them when she's filling him in on Spike was great. Fun to hear a recount of some of the past villains from Buffy. Hashtag Team Doydelia. Oh, okay, you like those two together? Seth Green's interactions as Oz are always perfect. His delivery of every line is spot on. I agree with y'all that an Oz spinoff would have been amazing. When he busts in driving his van and the crossbows aimed at Spike, so cool. Spike and Angel together again. Their relationship throughout the remainder of this series reminds me of the Joker and Batman. Foes, but they need each other and are emotionally dependent on each other. No,
that's a really good analogy. Yeah, I like that.
The Rachel story was so sad. Was her mentioning the freaky church on Sunset a callback to when Buffy ran away to LA? Oh,
maybe.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I think you're onto something, Becky. The cycle of abuse is a horrible thing, and I am glad she got away in the end. That's how we'll all see it. I think I like that.
That's my headcanon. She's happy.
Yes. I like it. Doyle's acquaintances have some interesting names. I love the subtle ways they show Angel's deliberation about the ring. When I first saw this episode, I was upset that he chose to destroy the ring. On second watch, I think it fits his character that he did. To prevent the possibility of it getting into anyone else's hands, but also to protect the people he cares about should he become Angelus again. Oh, good point. Glad he got to bask in the sun for a little while, though. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the Angelus thing. The torture scenes were brutal. Marcus is gross, especially the eating the kids thing. I don't know how Angel withstood all that pain. Nice twist that he ended up with the ring and led to a really cool scene when Angel took him out off the pier. Spike was hilarious with his impatience about getting started and Angel not giving up the ring. Some great witty dialogue between the two. His monologue about being a loner and such, only to end up with his hair on fire, was hilarious. Great. The rooftop scene CGI was not great. Lol. Yeah, that kind of took me out of it for a second. Last point is a Charisma Carpenter hair appreciation note. That's some beautiful hair.
That's true. When she's like spins around and it all like flows past.
Oh my gosh, goals. I think, Spike like mentions that too.
Like, you look great, Cordelia.
Yeah, he's like, you look great. Love the hair. And I was like, I think he says love the hair. I was like, Favorite quotes? Cordelia saying Oz's name over and over again was great. Doyle's response. Let me take a stab at this. But you'd be Oz? Oz asking Angel as the detective, does he have a hat and gun? Cordy, just fangs. Cordelia saying Doyle would celebrate the opening of a mailbox with a drink down at the pub.
True.
Angel to Oz, thanks for your help. You're the key. Oz, you're incredibly pale. He was in that scene. That was that. Seth Green is very pale, but he looked like he had a tan compared to David Boreanaz. They really got that pale on him. Angel about his torture. This was a good quote. One more hot poker and I was giving him everything. The ring, your mom, everything. How is your mom? I have not done an Angel rewatch before, so this is exciting. Oh, I forgot how great this show could be. Y'all are killing it with the podcast, as always, and it's adding to my enjoyment of rewatching. Oh, tell Sam I love her laugh. Grr, arr. Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
Becky, you're so awesome. We'll have to have her back on
I
soon.
love it. Yes, that would be amazing.
We heard from our good buddy Coffee and Vodka, who said about this episode, "Greetings, fellow sunlit slayers. It's funny the tropes you miss, like the heroes arriving in the nick of time and no honor among thieves. Even more missed were the Oz exchanges with Angel and Cordelia. My kind of conversation. Spike's admission of his plan going awry because of his impatience went a long way to making the harsh light of day more acceptable. No one could be that stupid, I'd thought. Turned out Spike, through his own admission, was. Liked all of it, from the no-holds-barred torture, humor, and neatly tied-off ending. All of it except for Angel's explanation as to why he couldn't keep the ring. It was obvious why he couldn't, plot-wise, but would have been much better to say that the Gem of Amara would have been a beacon calling vamps near and far to L.A., endangering the lives of everyone there. Otherwise, a highly enjoyable ep. Yeah, that would have been a good point in addition to the other points.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I
think all these are good reasons.
He gives it 4 flamin' angels, found faiths, and sandy punctured pedos out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka.
That's awesome.
We have voicemails from Steve for both of the episodes, so I'll play the 103 message first.
Hello, Still Slaying. This is Steve, and I'm watching Angel Season 1, Episode 2, Lonely Hearts, trying to get caught up with the podcast. I'm going to do In the Dark as a live Steve, but I just noticed the next anachronistic thing that we don't have here 25 years later, 26 years later. Angel just used a phone book attached to a payphone to find someone's address. All right, here we go with In the Dark, second part of In the Harsh Light of Day. What was the Buffy episode called? Oh, an angel there, right on time to rescue the girl. Oh, that's right. The best monologue by Spike right here. Big fluffy puppy with bad teeth. Oh, and guest starring Seth
a good
Green,
impression.
of course. Does Oz even know where they are? I don't remember any of that. The exchange between Oz and Cordelia. We done? Completely. Of course, Doyle and Angel know what the Gem of Amara is, but Cordelia doesn't, so it's got to be explained to her. I've never read Angela's Ashes, and Doyle hungover is just priceless. Forgot about what happens with the storyline with Rachel, but here Spike is about to kidnap Angel. Or maybe not. Nobody can burn the place to the ground. Okay, Doyle's place it is. Oh, meanwhile, back at Rachel's. Oh, okay, Angel trying to get Rachel back on track, and now we are back with Cordelia and Doyle, and she's telling him about Spike. Start with Manny the Pig and work your way down. And here's Angel working his way down. Ooh, and Spike leads him into a trap. Well, Marcus has some insight. He can tell that Angel's known love and that he's has a soul. Spike just called Angel his sire. I can't remember if Drusilla or Angel sired Spike. He has called Angel his Yoda, his sire, before. When Spike tells Angel about Parker. Now Spike is in Angel's apartment, so apparently vampires can enter other vampires' establishment, homes, houses. Oh, I forgot that Spike uses Angel being kidnapped and tries to get Cordelia and Doyle to find the ring. Oh, and Spike rescues Marcus from the stake that Angel had in his feet. Oh, Doyle can use his demon smell to find it. Oh, and Oz's van, I forgot about this. Did give him the real ring, so of course Marcus took it. Spike ranting until he walks into the bullet hole sunlight. So how do they know that Marcus took the ring? I guess they do. They figured it out. I guess. I don't know. He's just going to give up and leave. Oh, an Angel out of the van, on fire, leaping over into the water. Oh, and Angel basically makes short work of Marcus, takes the ring off him, and he goes to dust. Oz, you're incredibly pale. And he smashes the ring at the end of the day. And we get closure of the Rachel storyline that she found faith. Not the Vampire Slayer faith, some actual faith. All right. Talk to you next week.
Thank you so
Very
much,
cool.
Steve.
That's awesome, Steve. Yeah, you're right. Like I caught that too when he pointed that out. I think it's just like a mess up in the show. Technically, Angel is Spike's grandsire. I think JW has even spoken about this of like he tried to rationalize it away and be like, well, technically he's his sire because he sired Drusilla, who sired Spike. But you're totally right. Like that's a weird thing.
That's an inconsistency in the writing.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. On to the feedback for episode 104.
From Becky, I forgot how creepy this one was. Though dude tossing his teeth at Angel was very funny.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I missed
the
that
teeth
part.
were so gross, and then they just like clomped onto Angel's arm, and it looked farcical, and it's the kind of thing that I don't even know if modern CGI or Frank or like Greg Nicotero could have made that look good. It was just goofy.
No, I do want that power, though. Can you imagine someone come up to you and they're just being all creepy, you can just eject your teeth onto them? Like, I'd pay
that's
money.
so unhygienic.
I'd pay money to have detachable teeth that can actually become a weapon. Boy, would people leave you alone.
Yeah. Oh,
I said no.
Everyone would leave you alone. Yeah.
I want that power.
Karen says, best quotes. Doyle saying, maybe I'm a little attracted. Karen adds a couple of laugh cry emojis. And then Melissa saying, we think you should go by Penji. It suits you. About the woman at the office with her cake misspelled. And then Karen adds in parentheses, Penny, please don't change your name.
No.
No plans to change my name. I'm pretty happy with the name Penny. Cordy says, he ever strike you as a big, dangerous creep? Her questioning technique seems terrible, but it actually works. ? Love that her directness is helpful.
I mean, usually directness
is.
I don't think I would have phrased it that way, but I would appreciate it if she asked me that question. Like,
it reminds me of the time in Buffy season 3 when they're trying to figure out who's gonna like murder people at the high school, and Willow writes up these questions for them all, and Cordy's like, "Are you planning on murdering a bunch of people today?" No subterfuge.
No filter, and respect. I like it. Oh my goodness. And then also for the email from Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah.
Greetings, fellow stalked slayers. Oh, little too close to home there, Coffee and Vodka. No, I'm kidding. Less than 10 minutes in, and Doyle's being a perfect pig. Cordelia uses the R word.
Yeah, that leaped off the screen at me.
Yeah. Angel thought it okay to sneak up on a woman in a dark and deserted parking garage. Melissa was power pressured into a date, and Cordelia initially excused it, also noting his social status as a surgeon. Putting on my anachronism blinders now to watch the rest of the episode. See, Coffee and Vodka gets it. Like this, so true.
Yeah.
See,
I like the phrase anachronism blinders as well. I think that's going to stick around.
I know. That's amazing. A decent creature of the week installment with all the usual privilege and anti-relationship subtext. What if an... Sorry, this made me laugh. What if an incel occurred but reimagined by Lovecraft? A final, if not novel, solution with the best bit being Melissa coming into her own and fearlessly facing off with her personal creep. A quick question, as I've forgotten, was Angel given back a working heart and circulatory system in Buffy? Seems like that'd be the only way the Doc's dart would have any effect.
It's like the breathing and the sweating. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I know. You're right, Coffee and Vodka. I know. And finally, I just finished season 1 of Creature Commandos with similar writing, directing, and on-screen homicidal tendencies. It occurred to me that James Gunn is an unproblematic JW. Thoughts?
Ooh. Interesting. I'll look into that.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, there's a sense of humor similarity there, definitely.
Yeah, an action, well-written characters.
A little bit of camp.
Yeah. I like it. And the comedy aspect, the humor, I think you've called it. And unlike JW, James Gunn has taken responsibility for his previous actions and apologized. And as we've seen, he has done better. Very nice. I like it. So Coffee and Vodka gives the episode 3 Men Apart, eye cams, and hands-on house calls out of 5. Hands-on house
Yeah.
calls.
It's a really good phrasing.
Oh my goodness. Peace and take care. Coffee and vodka. Wonderful as usual. Thank you. That was awesome.
And we have another voicemail from Steve for episode 4.
Hello, Still Slaying. This is Steve, and this is going to be for Angel, Season 1, Episode 4, I Fall to Pieces. I guess you're doubling down this week, huh? Oh, man, asking for money and Doyle getting a headache. Pen, paper, single malt scotch. Okay, so we meet this week's damsel in distress, and she's taking some pills in the bathroom, and now Angel's meeting her in the dark parking garage. Oh, Cordelia, use of the R word. Definitely a late 90s show, not PC today. Oh, creeper, changing this girl's PIN number? Come on. You shouldn't do that. I don't remember all this, but I know this guy's got some weird thing that he's able to keep an eye on this girl. Oh, I remember now. And I just said he keeps an eye on her. Cordelia trying to mention a reasonable fee to this woman who needs their help. Ooh, his eye is missing. And there's the disembodied eye in her apartment. Ew. Do most workplaces just let somebody just hang out there with no reason? I mean, Doyle here with this woman. And we have the next mention of Wolfram and Hart, the lawyer that the firm that Johnny Cochran is to, wouldn't want to be part of. Which is kind of a dated reference now, but I mean, we know who Johnny Cochran was. And Angel has done his homework with this guy. He knows that he's how good he is and able to kind of bluff his way through here. And he even had some sort of fake business card already ready with this Jensen name on it. Oh, and Cordelia just made an OJ reference. Oh, police officer asked him to put his hands up, and he has no hands because they're in this girl's apartment. And, of course, the policeman lets him go because he thinks he's, handless. Oh, and his hands just attacked the police officer by themselves. Oh. And the hands return home. Okay, they have a special line for this Jensen International Holdings. Got it. Oh, this guy just shot Angel with some sort of injection, but does Angel's blood flow? It does look like Angel's being affected, maybe. Oh, and so the eye goes back into the guy's head, the hand opened the door for him, and now he's in the building. Ooh, this guy is really menacing. He's got the scalpel up against Melissa's throat. I don't remember how this ends. Oh, and of course, Angel's back. Oh, the guy's ear fell off, and I think Angel just knocked his head off, I think. Oh, and Angel cut him up and buried him in concrete. Angel, I think I'll stay here and not burst into flames. All right, on to next week.
Thanks, Steve. That was
great.
A particularly good live, Steve. Thank you so much.
That was very, very good. I appreciate it.
All right, that's the end of the main section of the podcast. Stay tuned for the Watcher's Diaries if you want to hear the spoilery parts.
If you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com and in the show notes for each episode.
And of course, also, when you're at podcastica.com, you'll find links to our social media pages and all the other Podcastica shows. And as we always talk about, there are so many of them, and they're all good. I am obsessed with Squid Game Cast right now, loving it.
Yes. Same.
It's so interesting, and that show is so relevant right now when we're in this late stage capitalism, and the rich people are just tromping all over poor people. It's an amazing show, and I love the design of the Squid Game show. I can't get enough of the camera angles and the colors, and it's so beautifully made.
Yeah, I concur. I'm obsessed with the episode. Like I listen to them like as soon as they come out. The podcast is so great, and I have been watching the Squid Game, rewatching it because it makes me feel better. Because this is actually a setting where capitalism is happening that I can disengage from, and I can turn off the TV, and there it goes. It goes far away.
Yeah, that is a good reason to watch the Squid Game.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't feel as bad as it did in December. That's because I can log out of that. That's a tagline for 2025. Squid Game, the happy place for people. I've also been listening to the Adrenaline Cinema podcast. They're covering the Mayfair Witches. I'm not a big fan of it, but I do like the podcasts of it. So I have enjoyed their coverage of the shows, and I'm pretty sure they're going to cover Interview with the Vampire with the next season that is supposed to come out this year, I believe. So that's another show I've been listening to lately.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if you like what we do, give us a 5-star rating, a review, or a like, follow, and subscribe. Next time, we'll be covering Buffy Season 4, Episode 4, Fear Itself. Thanks, everyone, and...
Please. I couldn't get comfortable in here if the floor was lined with mink. I mean, how can you live like this?
Well, I didn't until last week. Then I saw what you did with your place, and I just had to call my decorator.
No way. My apartment is nowhere near this yucky. It smells like bong water in here.
Love it.
All right, that is the end of the non-spoiler section, and if you want to avoid spoilers, you should stop listening right now. 3, 2, 1, that's enough time. On to the Watcher's Diaries.
Yes.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah. That's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
And we could talk all we want about how awesome it is when Spike joins the cast of Angel in season 5.
Oh my gosh.
And they hate each other, but they work together. Oh, it's so fun.
Much. I wonder if this was the episode where they really saw how much fun it was having these two away from the Buffy cast.
Yeah.
And they were like, kind of like how JW said that he didn't think that that David Boreanaz could hold his own show until he saw the fight between him and SMG in season 2 finale.
Yeah.
I wonder if this was when the JW and the other creators were like, you know what, this is probably some of the best interactions we have.
This is some comedy gold. We gotta come back to this. It's Spike and Angel is the gift that just keeps on giving. But truly, Spike has comedic chemistry with everyone. He's really funny with Buffy. He's funny with Willow.
Yes.
He's funny with Xander. He's funny with Giles.
Yes.
He's
very true.
He's funny with Anya. He is hilarious.
Oh my god. Yes. And can you imagine how much better it would have been if they put Spike in Angel rather than have him have this weird romantic interest and relationship with Buffy? I did not like that. And I found it toxic when it was happening, and I'm not a fan of it all these times later either.
Yeah,
It's just weird.
I was sort of like halfway into it. Like, there were aspects of the Spike Buffy thing that made sense to me. Like, she was in a really dark place and she's using him, and you know, because she thinks of him as so far below her, she feels like she can like use him for some kind of emotional gratification, but it's actually making her feel worse. All that stuff made sense to me. I really didn't like the violent sex. I think that a lot of people might get the wrong idea from it and think that that's sexy when it really isn't.
No, it's self-destructive, and yeah, like it's such a weird thing and how they went about it. Yeah, I also, like, I'll own, for the most part, I'm not really interested in characters having romantic relationships. There's some exceptions, like on The Walking Dead. I really like Maggie and Glenn.
Oh,
They're
I
my
love
favorites.
Maggie and Glenn.
Like, that's just done so well. Rick and Michonne mostly, you know, but I find that I'm just less interested in them as the two characters become a ship, and that's their whole points of being. And I don't know, it also generally doesn't go well for the female character. I really like romantic relationships when they're similar genders, like LGBTQ. I find those wonderful to watch and very nuanced, and I don't see the disappearance of the individuals in those relationships. So I don't know.
I have always liked about Buffy and Angel, these two shows, that Buffy and Angel's love affair was intense and passionate, but it was interesting. The questions
Yes.
raised by a vampire and a slayer being in love were interesting enough to me that it didn't bother me. And
Yes.
and then, she's about to get together with Riley, and there are times when I'm like, ugh, Riley. And like, ugh, she's dating Riley. Who cares? But they managed to make that interesting as well. Like, they go
I
through
really
some
liked his
really
character.
intense issues, and Riley gets more interesting as time goes on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's not a romance show.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
we were
point.
talking, I think before we started recording, about like Vampire Diaries is like mostly about romance and relationships. And I found it to be like a fun show. I watched it,
Yeah.
but I never rewatched it. I never went back to it.
I rewatched the originals, but again, the least interesting part of the originals is the romantic relationships. I like the siblings relationships.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating and fun. Like 1,000-year-old spending 1,000 years with your siblings. Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
God.
Like-
Yeah, in general, I'm not a fan of a lot of shows that are like soap opera-y, that have a lot of romance and romantic intrigue. Like, it's just not really my genre. I like
Yeah.
I like shows like with, darkness and apocalypses and
Mhm.
larger than life problems and people trying to make decisions under horrible
Yes.
circumstances. That's interesting
Same.
to me. A
Same.
romance has to be
Yeah.
really compelling for me to get excited about it. And Maggie and Glenn is a good
Yeah.
example
Oh,
because
they're so sweet.
their love is this beacon of hope in the midst of all this just dreck, just horrible suffering.
Yes.
And somehow they
Yes.
manage to be sort of wholesome. It's so weird.
I know. Yeah, and they very much maintain identities outside of each other
Yeah.
to the point like where when they spent like half a season they weren't even near each other, and yeah, I just Maggie and Glenn both, neither one of them ever lost themselves in a relationship type
Yeah.
thing.
After Glenn
Um,
dies, I understand Maggie is destroyed by it
yes.
and she goes through a long period of grief and anger. All of that makes sense to me. But when they
Mhm.
rebooted or when they came back with the spin-off Dead City, somehow Maggie's entire personality is about grieving Glenn. It's no longer
Yeah.
a thing that happened to her. It is her. And it's what
Yeah.
there's a lot of things about Dead City that didn't really ring for me, but that was one of them,
Yeah.
is that I felt like Maggie had actually regressed and was less of a character than
Yes.
she was on The Walking Dead.
Which would be interesting because I mean, like, I'm interested in those characters, kind of similar to Buffy. Like, I would be interested in like 25 years later.
Oh my
What
God, I
happens
would
when you're no
love to see
longer?
Buffy 25
Yeah,
years later.
yeah. It's like, what happens when you no longer need to fight all the time? And we sort of see that with Carol
Yeah.
in the Carol's in the book of Carol. That makes sense to me. She's finally having a chance to process it. So I wonder if that sort of happened with Maggie too, because she had to fight nonstop until then. And it's like, cool, now you have to cope with the fact everyone you've loved except for your son is dead,
Yeah.
and a handful of friends.
Yeah.
And then looking at your son and seeing like someone who looks so much like Glenn. I mean, and the questions he has. I struggled with her character being written and that was her only identity. And I get, like, she has to go save her son.
Yeah.
I get that. I didn't like that that was the only thing about her character and how, like, she was a mother and a widow. Like, that was her main thing. It's like, come on, she had so much more to
There's so
her.
much
And
going on with Maggie in The Walking Dead, and then it's just,
yeah,
I don't know. Dead City was really
yeah.
disappointing. There also just were not enough zip lines, and
I know that, like, the coolest. I am excited for season 2.
I mean, I'll watch
I
it.
do. Yeah, like, yeah, I know. That's how I feel about the Book of Daryl, and I'm really hoping they don't do another Michonne and Rick
Yeah,
thing.
that ended fine. I'm done with that.
Yeah, like, I appreciated it. I mean, it was beautifully done. Some of the best stuff we've ever had for The Walking Dead. I don't really care about them as a couple. I'm glad they're together. Didn't really care about the rest of it.
I care a lot more about them being reunited with their kids.
Yeah, like, and that could have been like 3 episodes. Yeah. But like, yeah, like I know so many people loved it, and they loved, again, the episode directed by Denai Guerrera, which was, again, beautiful. I was very much in my listener feedback. I'm like, I'm so bored.
Yeah. Well, to me, it felt like watching a play, and I was sort of like,
yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. I'll watch a play, but like, I don't know.
I don't like plays.
Yeah.
So like this probably explained it. But like we sort of see that, right? We see this with Buffy and Angel and them getting to a space. Like, I love season 5 because it's not really about romantic relationships.
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, in the beginning,
it's about
she's
putting
with
the
Riley
guys in evil positions.
But then he's gone, and it's about Buffy standing on her own 2 feet and becoming an adult as opposed to being a child. And it's season 5 is maybe the best season of Buffy. It's hard to say because season 3 is also so awesome, but like, I love season 5, and there's good things in every episode.
Really good. Yeah, the final season is really good. I gotta say, even on the rewatch, I wasn't as annoyed by the beginning Slayers as I thought I was.
Yeah.
But like it some of that stuff just doesn't hold up to 25 years later. But it's very compelling. Like, the storylines are very compelling. It passed the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just yeah, they're very interesting. So I'm like, I wonder what it would have been like if Spike had like gone over to Angel before all this stuff. And I also see that he was very much embedded in the Buffy show. And in Angel, I don't know where he would have fit in with the storylines.
Right.
Because
the way he
didn't
shows
need the humor.
up in season 5 works really well.
Yes. Yes. And Lindsay, I did like them quoting Wolfram and Hart in there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to get to more Wolfram and Hart. They're
those
such
are my
good villains.
favorite episodes. Oh my gosh, I love Lindsay and Lila. They're like some of my favorite characters of both of these shows.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, they're just delightful. But yeah, we have some pretty cool episodes in Angel coming up.
I'm excited to get to them. I really am.
Yes.
So
cool.
So with that, I think that's the complete end of our show for today.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to us. If you're still with us at this point, like, you're one of us.
You're one of us. One of us.
Until next time, I'm Penny.
And I'm Sam. Keep slaying.